Hogwarts, The Return of Turmoil. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 451, Stone Arch Incident. The news that the stone archway was taken away by the Ministry of Magic spread quickly throughout the school. Although no one had discussed the stone archway for a long time, they did not want to see it being taken away by the Ministry of Magic. Everyone was speculating whether the Ministry of Magic had discovered the secret of the stone archway and was preparing to secretly swallow up the inheritance left by the four founders of Hogwarts. James and his friends even cried out that it was a pity. They had tried to approach and study the stone archway for no less than 100 times, but all ended in failure. Last month, the two of them had figured out a new way, but they had not had time to implement it. It's hard to believe that the Ministry of Magic would do this. Principal McGonagall said that it was Hogwarts property. During breakfast, Hugo and Lily had a heated discussion while thinking about how to go back and ask indirectly. One of their parents worked in the Ministry of Magic, but Hugo did not dare to write a letter to ask. He was encouraging Lily to write a letter home. "I won't ask. It would be strange if my dad would tell me." Lily forked a piece of pudding and rejected Hugo's suggestion, saying, "Why don't you ask your mother? You know her temper. She will eat me alive." Hugo turned his head and said to Maureen, "Maureen, how about you write a letter home to ask your grandfather? Don't worry, the people in the Ministry of Magic can't figure out anything." Maureen shook his head. "Are you so sure?" Hugo was surprised. "Think about it. The Department of Mysteries also has such a door. They have studied it for so many years and haven't figured it out. What do you expect to find out about the stone archway of the school?" Maureen said casually. Lily drank a sip of milk and said, "You actually don't believe in the ability of the Ministry of Magic?" Maureen held his chin with his hand and said, "It's not that I don't believe in the ability of the Ministry of Magic at this point." Maureen frowned, and then continued, "Oh, yes, I don't really believe in the Ministry of Magic." Lily and Hugo looked at each other, feeling incredible, because the parents of the three of them were all from the Ministry of Magic. "Won't your grandfather beat you to death? He is also a retired employee of the Ministry of Magic." "How dare you say that about the Ministry of Magic?" Hugo said incoherently with a bulging sandwich in his mouth. "Not bad." Maureen smiled. "My grandfather never beat me." Alton didn't even scold Maureen, let alone beat her. Sometimes Alton would complain to Maureen about the systems of the Ministry of Magic. The Ministry of Magic was not a place for easy people. But at this moment, there was a commotion in the restaurant. Someone shouted loudly, "Back! Back! What's back?" "That door, the inheritance of the four founders is back." "What?" The whole hall was boiling. Everyone put down the breakfast, rushed out of the hall, and went outside to check. "What's going on? Did the Ministry of Magic send the stone arch back so quickly? Didn't they just take it away yesterday?" Hugo said in surprise. Maureen also felt a little strange. He put down the cup in his hand, picked up his school bag and said, "Let's go and have a look." They all squeezed out of the hall and mixed in the crowd. It was not easy. There were too many people who wanted to join in the fun. Because the stone arch was just taken away yesterday, everyone discussed it in the morning and strongly condemned the Ministry of Magic's shameless behavior, but they didn't expect that the stone arch was suddenly returned. This kind of thing is a bit strange. Almost all the students in the school rushed out of the castle, and even the professors ran out to check the situation in surprise. They didn't seem to understand what happened. Maureen squeezed in the crowd with great effort. He couldn't squeeze forward because there were too many people in front of him. Even Professor Flitwick couldn't squeeze to the front. He kept shouting to make way, but because he was too short, no one noticed him. He was accidentally pushed down by other students who wanted to squeeze forward, and almost caused a stampede. Finally, he cast a levitation spell on a large stone, and the stone carried him above everyone and floated towards the stone arch. The levitation spells of other students couldn't do this, so they could only try to get closer to the stone arch with their bodies. After the stone arch was dug up by the Ministry of Magic yesterday, the protective magic nearby had been removed, so many students who arrived early had squeezed under the stone platform of the stone arch. This was the first time they really looked at the stone arch up close. James and Albus even stood in front of the stone arch, talking to the four statues above it. I said the inheritance of the stone arch should be left to the students of Hogwarts. James poked the head of Slytherin's snake with his wand. It seems that the people from the Ministry of Magic have also realized this and sent it back. Albus touched the mane of the Gryffindor lion, feeling magical and proud. They know very well that the heir of the treasure should be among us. The stone arch was not sent back by the people from the Ministry of Magic, Albus. It appeared out of thin air this morning. A senior boy also climbed up the stone platform and said, "Appeared out of thin air." "Yes, the kind that appeared by itself. I saw it with my own eyes." "Comrades, the opportunity has come. Let's study it together." More and more students wanted to climb up the stone platform to touch the stone arch. People were already crowded together, and the scene was very chaotic. The latest novels are first published on the 6-9 book bar. But Professor Flitwick had already approached the stone arch from above everyone and cast a bubble spell on the students on the stone arch. James and the others were wrapped in bubbles and forced to float in the air. Professor Flitwick also used a spell to separate a space near the stone arch to prevent more people from squeezing forward. "Don't squeeze. Don't squeeze. Before we figure out the matter of the stone arch, it's unwise for you to squeeze like this. It's easy to get trampled." Professor Flitwick screamed. "Professor, since you can't figure it out, why don't you let us try? Maybe one of us can touch this stone archway." James was trapped in a huge bubble by Professor Flitwick, swinging in the air. He was pounding the bubble in dissatisfaction, trying to get closer to the stone archway again, but unfortunately Professor Flitwick's magic was not so easy to break. "That's right. At least give all of us a chance. Don't you always say that theory must be proven by practice? If each of us touches it, maybe the stone archway will be sensitive." Albus was floating with a bubble. He was upside down and couldn't move at all, but he still poked the bubble with his wand, trying to burst it. "This is not a question of whether to touch or not, Potter. You two just touched it. Did the stone archway react?" Professor Flitwick said. "Then there are us." Another group of students shouted below. "That's right, James and Albus are not heirs, maybe we are." Others were also making a fuss. "Shut up, Darryller, who said we weren't? Maybe we just didn't touch the right place." James shouted, "Maybe we should wash our hands with lion's saliva or something. We have to try every possibility." "That's right. No possibility can be missed." Many students agreed with James's suggestion. "Be quiet, Potter, unless you want me to put you in detention," Headmaster McGonagall said seriously. Her voice was loud and intimidating in the crowd, much more effective than Professor Flitwick's words. Everyone obediently made way for her. Chapter 452 The Lost and Found Stone Arch. The lost and recovered stone arch was just dug up by the staff of the Ministry of Magic yesterday, and suddenly reappeared this morning. Even Principal McGonagall didn't understand why. Several professors separated the students again, and then stood on the stone arch to discuss something with each other. In the end, they couldn't discuss anything. Then Principal McGonagall suddenly turned around and shouted to the students who were whispering, "Where's Maureen Walker? Let him come over." Many people looked at Principal McGonagall in surprise. Principal McGonagall suddenly called out Maureen's name at this time, which made everyone feel incredible. Everyone's eyes fell on Maureen, who was standing at the back. Maureen was a little embarrassed to be stared at by everyone. These people looked at him with doubts. Everyone wanted to know why the principal came to find Maureen at this time. Did the professor find out that Maureen is the heir of Gryffindor? Someone asked. "It's him. I always thought that 3 people from the Potter family had a greater chance." When the Gryffindor students looked at Maureen, their eyes were full of envy and unwillingness. Many of them hoped that they were the so-called heirs, but the students from other colleges didn't care, especially the students from Slytherin and Hufflepuff. In their opinion, there was still a chance. But these people didn't know that the so-called inherited treasures of the 4 founders were simply fictitious. The crowd once again made way for Maureen, and Maureen walked towards the stone archway. Several professors had been looking at him, as if they were going to present him with an award on the stone platform above the stone archway. He always felt that Headmaster McGonagall might take out a big trophy from her wide sleeves. This scene made Maureen feel very weird. Principal McGonagall waved her wand and cast a sound-blocking spell, isolating the sounds around the stone platform so that the students below could not hear it. Then she went straight to the point and asked, "The people from the Ministry of Magic just took it away by force yesterday. With their temper, it is impossible for them to return it so easily. Can you explain it, Maureen?" "Professor, you can't blame me for everything that happened," Maureen muttered. I went to bed on time last night, got up on time in the morning to brush my teeth and wash my face, and I didn't have time to run to the Ministry of Magic to get it back. Besides, he didn't have that ability. I didn't say you ran to grab the stone arch. Principal McGonagall glared at Maureen. You are the most familiar with the reappearance of the stone arch. Did the Hufflepuffs in the room of requirement tell you why the stone arch came back? All the professors in the school had not figured out the matter of the stone arch before, and Maureen was the only one who figured it out. So now that this situation has occurred, Principal McGonagall must look for him. I don't know, Headmaster. Maureen said sincerely, and then guessed, maybe it's homesick? Professor, you know, many magic items are spiritual. It's good to go home often. Professor Flitwick and Professor Kane were amused by Maureen's words. They were trying to hide the smiles on their lips, but Professor Francis and Headmaster McGonagall had cold expressions on their faces. This is not a joke. Headmaster McGonagall held her wand and pointed to the stone arch behind her. Once the stone arch comes back, the Ministry of Magic will definitely come to the door again. If I don't give them an answer, they will definitely suspect that I am doing something secretly. This is true. Yesterday, Augustine's attitude was so firm that he ran to the headmaster's office to forcibly take away the books in the headmaster's office, but was rejected by Headmaster McGonagall. He must be upset. Now the stone arch that he had just dug out has come back again. Augustine must take the opportunity to make a fuss. Then I have no choice. Anyway, it won't reply even if I call it 100 times. Maureen didn't have any better ideas. Hufflepuff hadn't told him what the stone arch outside was for. The only function that Maureen knew was to warn about the safety of the Black Cube. But if he told the people in the Ministry of Magic about the Black Cube, they wouldn't believe it. Apart from Maureen, no one else had seen the Black Cube, and there was no historical record of the function of the Black Cube. It was unlikely that the people in the Ministry of Magic would accept the existence of the Black Cube. Maureen turned his head to look at the pattern on the stone arch. He counted it and there were still 10 of them, which meant that the remaining 2 were still safe. Principal McGonagall and other professors discussed for a long time and found that they couldn't discuss more things, so they reset the protective spell on the stone arch and let everyone leave. But as soon as Maureen went down, he was surrounded by everyone. I didn't expect you to hide so well. You are actually the heir of Gryffindor. I should have thought of it earlier. Last time you went to the Forbidden Forest to rescue the heir of Ravenclaw. Tell me, what does it feel like to be an heir? Does Headmaster McGonagall know who the heir of our Hufflepuff is? Many people asked about Maureen's situation. Maureen made vague excuses and kept emphasizing that he didn't know. How could you not know? The headmaster has already chosen your name. What about the heir of Ravenclaw? Soon Ayn Rand was also remembered by everyone. Many people ran over to ask her. She was surrounded by Maureen with a distressed look on her face. I really don't like this. Ayn Rand whispered, pulling the corner of Maureen's clothes. Believe me, I don't like it either. Maureen said helplessly. Are you two a couple? Someone asked loudly. The heir of Gryffindor and the heir of Ravenclaw, they are a perfect match. The latest novel is first published on the 69th book bar. No wonder you always go together, Maureen. You have become a bad person, and you are playing 2 women at the same time. You don't want Magatha anymore. Some people who like to do good things began to tease him. Maureen blushed and muttered, it's not true, why are you worrying about it? He quickly pulled and ran away from the crowd and ran away. Everyone was discussing this matter enthusiastically for a whole morning. He and Ayn Rand would be surrounded wherever they went. Later, they could only run to the school infirmary for refuge. There, Madame Pomfrey did not allow anyone to enter and leave at will, but she obviously made an exception for Maureen. Maureen sat on the hospital bed, watching Ayn Rand helping Madame Pomfrey treat a student with cactus thorns on his body. The sunlight shone through the window onto Ayn Rand, and she looked very quiet and elegant. Maureen thought Ayn Rand was very cute when she was studying healing magic seriously. Thinking back to when someone said that he and Ayn Rand were a couple, it was a very strange feeling. Why are you always looking at me? After Ayn Rand finished her own business, she came over and sat down next to Maureen. Are you still thinking about us? No, I'm not thinking about you, I'm thinking about that. I didn't think about it secretly, that's not what I said. Maureen blushed, and when he thought of the gossipy people saying that he and Ayn Rand were a couple, he was a little flustered, and quickly looked away, saying something irrelevant. What are you talking about? Ayn Rand asked in confusion. What's there to think about secretly? Now everyone treats us as the heirs of Gryffindor and Ravenclaw. I feel that this semester is going to be difficult again. I was pointed at for 2 months last semester. It was not easy for everyone to forget about this matter, but now I am being targeted again. Oh, you are talking about this, right? I was also thinking about the stone arch, thinking that we are all that heir. They are really looking for trouble. Maureen reacted and quickly pretended to be nonchalant. He tried desperately to change the subject, and then pointed at the student whose cactus thorns had not been completely removed, and said, "This unlucky guy doesn't know about the stone arch incident this morning. It's so pitiful, ha, ha." After that, Maureen laughed dryly twice. "Why do I feel that you are a little strange?" Unran blinked and reached out to touch Maureen's forehead. "You don't have a fever, right?" Maureen lay back on the bed and covered his face with a pillow. He felt that his head was emitting stupidity. Chapter 453 The Minister's Inquiry. The student with a cactus growing on his body is from Gryffindor, named Liam. It is said that he bought a pot of Mibio cactus in Hogsmeade yesterday, but accidentally bought a pot of Devil's Claw cactus. Once the Devil's Claw cactus is touched, it will make people's body covered with thorns. This kind of poisonous thorns are difficult to remove. Madame Pomfrey said that if the thorns are directly pulled out, it will leave ugly marks, so a potion was used, but it will take 2 days to disappear. For the whole morning, Maureen and Anrin hid in the school infirmary. From time to time, there were students who wanted to enter the school infirmary under the banner of visiting Liam, who had cactus thorns on his body, even though some of them did not know this unfortunate guy at all. Their main purpose was to sneak in and ask Maureen and Anrin about inheritance. Most of them were from Slytherin and Hufflepuff. But Madame Pomfrey righteously drove all these visitors away. She also took a sign and posted it on the door of the school infirmary, which read, "Nelham refuses visitors. Cactus thorns are contagious. If you don't want to lie in bed with Nelham, you can't be a patient with him." But soon James and Albus were enthusiastically selling blood sugar and vomiting sugar to those people outside. After eating this, they could pretend to be sick when they vomited and had diarrhea. The targets of their sales were mainly those Hufflepuff and Slytherin students who wanted to ask Maureen and Anrin what conditions were required to become heirs. If Professor Francis hadn't confiscated their things when he passed by, the Potter brothers would have made a small profit. At noon, Maureen and Anrin didn't go to eat. Madame Pomfrey was kind enough to ask the house elves to bring them some food. She already knew what was happening outside and what Maureen and Anrin were hiding from. "What nonsense, what air, it's all nonsense," Madame Pomfrey said as she sorted out the bottles and jars on the medicine cabinet. "The headmaster has explained to the students at noon that this is not about the air at all, but no one seems to believe it. It seems that there is really too little homework." Not long after lunch, there was another commotion outside, and someone knocked on the door. Madame Pomfrey thought that the group of students were going to come in with some bad idea of pretending to be sick. She shouted angrily with her wand, "If anyone dares to look for trouble again, I promise to turn his hair into cactus thorns." "Oh, Madame Pomfrey, this is too serious." The door of the school infirmary was pushed open, and Augustine walked in. Seeing Madame Pomfrey with her hands on her hips like an old hen, she was also shocked. "I'm just here to find 2 students. I won't disturb them for too long." "Is it you?" Madame Pomfrey frowned. Yes, Madame Pomfrey, how are you recently?" Augustine rubbed his hands and asked with a smile on his face. He was also a graduate of Hogwarts before, so he naturally knew this witch who had been the school doctor at Hogwarts for decades, and knew that she had a bad temper. "There is no stone arch in the school infirmary, Minister," Madame Pomfrey said angrily. I know, the stone arch suddenly came back, and I just asked other students. I heard that they all said that the heir was hiding here, so I came to ask about the situation. It won't take too long." Augustine glanced and saw Maureen and Anrin sitting on a hospital bed. "Oh, it's you again." Augustine was already very familiar with Maureen. "Minister." Maureen stood up and greeted him in surprise. Anrin stood timidly behind Maureen and greeted him nervously. For Anrin, the Minister of the Ministry of Magic was a very high position. She was just a first-year student, and such a person should never have any contact with her in her 8 lifetimes. But Maureen was different. He was used to it and was not surprised. "Shall we go out and talk? We won't disturb the patients here." Augustine's tone was surprisingly gentle, so gentle that Maureen was not used to it. They walked outside the school infirmary. The students in the corridor had been cleared. There were 2 Aurors guarding in the distance to make sure no one would come. Augustine took off his wizard hat and smiled at Maureen. "You are indeed a handsome man, Maureen. Your grandfather Alton and I are old acquaintances. Mr. Singh also praised you generously. I just heard that you and this little girl are the heirs of Gryffindor and Ravenclaw. Is that true?" Augustine's tone was really patient, and people could not find any reason to refuse. "Minister, who did you hear that from?" Maureen asked politely. Everyone is saying that we found the stone arch mysteriously disappeared in the morning, and thought it was stolen again, only to find that it actually returned to the school. This is really strange. I asked around, and other students said that as soon as the stone arch appeared, Principal McGonagall called you over. Why is that? Augustine fiddled with the wizard hat and asked in a very understanding tone. Because I was put in detention yesterday. Maureen thought about the reason quickly in his mind. I made a big mistake. Principal McGonagall originally asked me to go to her place to continue detention today, but I went to join in the fun and was discovered by her. She was in a bad mood to begin with. She saw me wandering around there, so she called me up and criticized me. The latest novels are first published on the 6th-9th book bar. Augustine stared at Maureen's eyes of different colors and said, "This is strange." The first thing the headmaster did when the stone arch suddenly returned to Hogwarts was not to dismiss the students who were watching. Why did she call you up to criticize? From what I know about Principal McGonagall, she is a person who knows the priorities. Augustine's sense of smell is quite sharp. He knows very well that this matter is not that simple. But Maureen has already thought of an excuse, and his mind has been turning very quickly. Although he was a little clumsy when facing Enran's matter, he was different in this matter. You know, Minister, the stone arch suddenly returned, and there was no protection around. This matter is not only about you people in the Ministry of Magic, but even our students are particularly curious. Many students want to climb up and touch the stone arch. I wanted to climb up to see what was going on, but Principal McGonagall found that her warning was useless, so she used me as a scapegoat, killing the chicken to scare the monkey. I'm unlucky. Maureen looked unlucky, and shook his head with a sigh. But the version I heard was not like this. Augustine smoothed the wrinkles on his wizard hat and looked at Maureen meaningfully. I just asked other students, and they all said that you two are the heirs of Gryffindor and Ravenclaw. Maureen thought for a moment and said in surprise, Minister, haven't you heard the rumors about the heirs? This matter has been spread like this among our students. Since the beginning of last semester, the stone arch suddenly appeared, and everyone has been saying that this stone arch means the 4 founders are looking for an heir. Enran was captured by the Centaur's dark magic last semester. They said that the Centaurs wanted to eliminate the 4 heirs of Hogwarts, so Enran was regarded as the heir. Now I may have been targeted by the Centaurs too. Maureen tried his best to pretend to be uneasy. Since everyone was saying this anyway, Maureen simply went with the flow. If Augustine asked other students to investigate this matter, he would definitely not make any mistakes. Chapter 454, Scheming Minister. Augustine looked at Maureen. He wanted to see if Maureen was lying, but he couldn't find any flaws in Maureen's words, because when he went to other students to find out the situation, he also got the same rumor about the heir. But Enran was taken away and treated as the heir of Ravenclaw, so why do people say that you are also the heir? Augustine continued to ask calmly. Maybe it's because when Enran was taken away last time, I stupidly ran into the Forbidden Forest to find her. They thought I had something to do with the heir of Ravenclaw, because I played with Enran all day, and Principal McGonagall caught me and criticized me in the morning, so they misunderstood and regarded me as the heir of Gryffindor. Now they want to find the other 2 heirs, so they have been chasing us, and Enran and I hid here. What Maureen said was very real. Even if Augustine wanted to ask others to confirm it, he was not worried, because what other students said was exactly the same as what he said. Augustine nodded thoughtfully. He had actually inquired about this matter just now. He was also familiar with the rumors about the heir of the stone arch. He had heard about Enran being arrested. Maureen didn't seem to be lying. But Augustine was an old fox after all. He always felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on it. So what do you think about the 4 heirs of the school? Augustine continued to ask. I wish I were the heir of Gryffindor, so that I would have some privileges in school, but it's a pity that the headmaster doesn't seem to believe this. I should have stopped joining in the fun earlier. Now the headmaster has decided to extend my punishment. Maureen shrugged his shoulders with an innocent look. Maybe I can help you plead with the headmaster, but I still have a few questions. Augustine wanted to ask more, but footsteps were heard at the corner in front, and Headmaster McGonagall walked over hurriedly. Augustine, you can't interrogate my students casually. Headmaster McGonagall angrily pushed away the two Aurors who were trying to stop her. This is not the Ministry of Magic's business. They haven't violated any laws. If they make a mistake, I should take care of it. Of course, you're too polite, Headmaster McGonagall. This is not an interrogation. I'm just chatting with students. Augustine smiled. Now that I'm back to school, I naturally have to communicate more with students. Thinking of my student days, I feel younger. Augustine smiled with ease, glanced at Maureen again, and said happily, your eyes are very interesting. I believe that people with such peculiar eyes will not lie. Our Ministry of Magic welcomes such an outstanding student like you. If you want to be an Auror or do your grandfather's job in the future, you know, we always give special care to the descendants of retired officials. You can be considered half a member of the Ministry of Magic. Do you understand what I am saying? Of course, Minister. Maureen nodded desperately. Augustine turned around and said to Principal McGonagall, I will continue to investigate the stone arch. If you want to supervise, we will be at the gate of the castle. He put the wizard hat back on his head, and then left the corridor of the school infirmary with two Aurors. It was my mistake. I was a little anxious when I saw the stone arch in the morning. I shouldn't have called you up in front of so many people. Principal McGonagall looked at Augustine's back and whispered, he is a thoughtful person. What did you talk to him about? He was just asking about the heir. Maureen replied. It doesn't matter if you talk about such a fictitious thing. That's good. Without evidence, they won't believe the stone arch and the black cube, nor will they believe whether Sweet's father is a good person. But for the safety of Sweet's father, I believe you know what to do. Principal McGonagall was more relieved about Maureen, because Maureen often concealed the truth from the professors. She was not the kind of person who would tell all the secrets if given some candy. Principal McGonagall had a deep understanding of this point, and it was not easy for her to pry open Maureen's mouth. Principal McGonagall followed Augustine out of the corridor of the school infirmary. Augustine, thoughtful. Maureen thought carefully and found that Augustine was not as impatient and brainless as he seemed. Judging from his tone just now, he still had some doubts about Maureen, but because Maureen's words were traceable, he didn't say much. When Maureen met Augustine at the Ministry of Magic last summer, Augustine was almost trying to please Arnold. He kept nodding and smiling at Arnold, the famous Bobby singer, and treated him as a senior. At that time, Maureen thought that Augustine seemed to be a little indecisive. A dignified minister of magic would actually try to curry favor with Arnold, who had no power and influence. He didn't behave like a minister at all. But Maureen only realized now that Augustine was not indecisive at all. On the contrary, he was very cunning. If he could make friends with someone like Bobby Singer, who is very famous in the wizarding world, and get the support of such a celebrity, it would be of great benefit to his reputation as a minister. Augustine could completely put down his airs to curry favor with someone who could be used by him, and he didn't need to rely on his status as a minister to pressure him. When he spoke to Principal McGonagall yesterday, he also said good things first, and then when he couldn't persuade Principal McGonagall, he began to put pressure on Principal McGonagall by putting a big head on her. And now, when he talked to Maureen, he didn't have any arrogance as a superior, and his attitude was kind and patient. Even if he didn't see any flaws from Maureen, he mentioned it intentionally or unintentionally before leaving, telling Maureen that he was half a member of the Ministry of Magic in the capacity of a retired official of Alton. The latest novel will be first published on the 6th book bar on September 9th. This was clearly an attempt to win over Maureen and tell Maureen his attitude towards students. The Ministry of Magic cannot directly manage the affairs of Hogwarts now, so he needs to say something nice to Maureen. After all, Maureen knows Bobby Singer, which will be useful in the future. No wonder when Arnag mentioned why Augustine did not believe in Pangard, he said that Augustine was a shrewd politician and politicians had their own calculations. Maureen suddenly realized that if Augustine was such a person who seemed to have no opinion and no brain, how could he become the Minister of Magic? Only those who can bend and stretch and know how to endure are capable of doing great things. In his heart, he secretly classified Augustine as a person who needs to be treated with caution. At this level, the cunning Pangard is already won. Maureen is not particularly opposed to people from the Ministry of Magic. After all, Alton used to work in the Ministry of Magic, and he has to assist the Ministry of Magic if necessary. It's just that in the matter of Floyd and Lucas, he always feels that the people in the Ministry of Magic are a bit eager for quick success, which makes him not very trusting. It seems that you are still too young. Maureen is still young and has not experienced much of the world. Arnold and Alton taught him a lot of knowledge about life. He used to hang around the Ministry of Magic with Alton and had a little experience of the ways of the world. He knew how to read people's expressions. But it was the first time that Maureen had seen someone like Augustine who could easily give people the wrong impression. Chapter 455, Home-Loving Stone Arch. The whole school was in an uproar again, because the stone archway that had just been taken home in the morning was taken away by the Ministry of Magic in the afternoon. The people in the Ministry of Magic seemed to think that Principal McGonagall had cast some magic, but Principal McGonagall was tough and directly refuted Augustine's statement. I cast a trick? If I cast a trick, I would hide the stone archway. Would I leave it here waiting for you to trouble me? Principal McGonagall said coldly. Augustine knew from Principal McGonagall's attitude that the stone archway was not taken back by Principal McGonagall. He didn't want to tear his face with Principal McGonagall, so he once again mobilized the Aurors he brought with him, and waved his wands to take the stone archway away. This time they also cast all kinds of very powerful anti-confinement, anti-summoning, anti-apparition, anti-traction and other magic on the stone archway. Such a superb and complicated magic protection is almost more than enough. Even 2 experienced Aurors were sent to guard it. However, on Monday morning, the stone arch ran back to Hogwarts again. On Monday afternoon, the Ministry of Magic came to dig again. On Tuesday morning, the stone arch went home leisurely again. On Tuesday afternoon, the Ministry of Magic continued to dig. On Wednesday morning, the stone arch went home on time. The stone arch was telling the Ministry of Magic with practical actions, you can dig, if you don't come back, I'll lose. For 4 consecutive days, no matter what powerful magic the Ministry of Magic used to keep the stone arch seemed to be unappreciative. It will accompany you for a trip first, and then go home happily the next day, never late, and must stand proudly facing the morning sun when the first ray of sunlight shines down in the morning. The Ministry of Magic finally chose to give up this approach. They didn't study the stone arch thoroughly, and didn't understand where it came from. They didn't know what the stone arch of Hogwarts had to do with the stone arch stolen from the Department of Mysteries. If this continued, it would damage the reputation of the Ministry of Magic, so they stopped wisely. The teachers and students of the whole school discussed it with great interest. They believed that Archstone would not be willing to leave before finding the remaining 2 heirs. Archstone had a homesickness complex, which further stimulated the students' interest. Everyone was discussing who the remaining 2 heirs were. We really don't know what the conditions for the heirs are. The situation of Maureen and Anrin was even more unfortunate. They were surrounded by people almost every day. Wherever they went, they were admired. The students of Slytherin and Hufflepuff liked to observe them the most. They believed that there should be some common points between heirs. In addition to attending classes, Maureen now spends most of his time taking refuge in the restricted book area of the library, while Anrin runs to the school infirmary. These 2 places are not places that everyone can follow at will. Fortunately, Lily and Hugo believed in him. I don't think you are the heir. Maybe Anrin is, after all, she was arrested, but you didn't do anything. Lily thought it was too much to conclude that Maureen was the heir of Gryffindor just because Headmistress McGonagall called him up. She thought she was more likely to be the heir. After all, her father was the one who pulled the sword out of Gryffindor's hat. When it comes to the heir of Gryffindor, Lily thinks she is more likely than Maureen. Not necessarily. I think Maureen should be the heir of Hufflepuff. Everyone has made a mistake. Hugo was practicing the fading spell in the charms class. While casting a spell on the red cloth, he guessed, why would Hufflepuff look for him otherwise? I'm from Gryffindor House. Maureen waved his wand and turned the black cloth in front of him into white cloth. I took the initiative to find Hufflepuff. So many people have been to the Room of Requirement, many of them must be Hufflepuff students. Why did they only look for you? Hugo held his chin. In my opinion, you might be from Hufflepuff House, but the Sorting Hat made a mistake. This hat has been talking nonsense all the time, and it might be confused. You 2 should know that the existence of the stone arch has nothing to do with the heir, right? Maureen said. Maybe there is. Lily was very enthusiastic about this matter. Didn't Hufflepuff say that Gryffindor and Ravenclaw also left their own secret chambers like Slytherin? My current goal is to find Gryffindor's treasure. Count me in, maybe I'll have a share. Hugo said. Forget it. Lily pouted, your spells are too bad. The two began to quarrel again, and then discussed where Gryffindor's secret chamber is most likely to be. Maureen shrugged his shoulders. He had no interest in the secret chamber. In addition to studying the Stone Arch from time to time, the Ministry of Magic also had to capture Floyd, who escaped from prison. They kept a close watch on Floyd's wife and children, waiting for them, but Floyd did not contact his wife and children. Professor Francis would keep Sweet from time to time and ask him about Floyd to see if Floyd would contact Sweet, but the answer was also negative. The media exaggerated the story of the prisoner of Azkaban escaping from prison less than a month after being detained, causing panic in the wizarding world. The latest novel is published on the 69th book bar. There is no news about Arnok, and no one knows where Paingard is. No one knows where Professor Binns has gone. Floyd has also disappeared. It seems that everything has settled. But the calmer it is, the more uneasy Maureen feels. It's really strange. Am I thinking too much? Maureen muttered and wiped a handful of water droplets. It must be, silly boy, can't you just soak in the hot spring and have fun? When Maureen went to find Arnag in the painting, Arnag took him to the hot spring to relieve stress. Maureen was dragged into the water by him, so he simply stopped struggling. In the blink of an eye, it was the beginning of June, and all students began to review textbooks and prepare for exams. It has become a routine for Maureen to go to the Stone Arch every day to check if the pattern appears. In addition, he must start reviewing. Other courses are fine, but astronomy is as bad as ever, especially Professor Sinistra, the head of Hufflepuff, who is still very disgusted with Maureen for being approached by Hufflepuff. However, when Maureen took the astronomy exam, he still relied on the method of the former Lady Rhea to get through. The real Lady Rhea was not there, so he asked the Lady Rhea in the painting for help. Maureen knew that he would definitely pass the exam again, but he was already very satisfied. He had never had any hope for such a ghost thing as astronomy. Compared with astronomy, other courses were much simpler for him. Even the Muggle studies, which he had always been confused about, was very interesting to review. Because Ian and Rand stayed in the school infirmary every day to review in the week before the exam. Although Ayn Rand was a first-year student, she was more than enough to guide Maureen's frowning Muggle knowledge. Reviewing Muggle studies with Ayn Rand made studying very exciting. Finally, all the exams were over and everyone was waiting for the results. Although Gryffindor won the Quidditch trophy this year, the House Cup belonged to Ravenclaw. If Sweet hadn't suddenly disappeared 2 days before the holiday, Maureen felt that the month before the holiday should have been relatively calm. Chapter 456 Holiday. You really don't know where Sweet has gone? Professor Francis asked. Maureen shook his head. I don't know. He has always been alone and didn't tell me anything about his whereabouts. The first thing that happened when Sweet disappeared, Maureen was called to the principal's office by Principal McGonagall again, and he became the person interrogated by the professors again. You live in the same dormitory with him, but didn't you find anything wrong with him? Principal McGonagall asked. To be honest, he doesn't seem right to me every day. Maureen responded. Sweet was taciturn and rarely participated in the conversations of Maureen and Hugo. This was even more so after his father escaped from prison and was wanted. No one knew where he had gone. Maureen only vaguely realized that something was wrong when he didn't see Sweet return to the dormitory the night before yesterday. Then there's only one explanation, isn't it? Professor Francis said. Both Professor Francis and Principal McGonagall had mentioned to Sweet last time that if his father Floyd contacted him, he should inform them as soon as possible. They could already imagine that Floyd must have secretly contacted Sweet and asked Sweet to secretly leave the school to meet him. Sweet chose to hide this from the professor. Professor, if Sweet is outside the school, he will be easily caught by the Ministry of Magic if he uses magic. Maureen reminded. Minors are not allowed to perform magic outside the school, and the Ministry of Magic is looking for Floyd. The order they received was to kill Floyd directly if he resisted arrest. If Sweet went to find his father and accidentally performed magic, it would easily implicate his father. Principal McGonagall and Professor Francis also understood this. You go back first and tell us immediately if there is any situation. Principal McGonagall said to Maureen. She is very worried now. Everyone can leave school the day after tomorrow, but Sweet disappeared at this time. She, as the principal, is also worried. Maureen left the principal's office. He was wondering where Sweet had left the school. There were not many ways to leave the school, and many places were blocked. Maureen left through the room of requirement last time. Could it be that Sweet had left the room as well? Maureen ran to the room of requirement to find Arnak in the painting, but Arnak had never helped Sweet. Arnak would not let anyone go to that small room except Maureen. Maureen was puzzled. No one knew where Sweet had gone. The final grades had come out, and Maureen had no intention of paying attention to his grades. Everyone was busy packing their luggage. Tomorrow everyone could go back for summer vacation. No one cared about Sweet's sudden departure. He's really weird. He's going home without waiting for the grades to come out. Hugo was packing his luggage. He tried to use a folding spell to pack his clothes, but after burning his clothes, he finally decided to start folding them by hand. Maureen looked at Sweet's bed and shook her head. It's unlikely that he will go home. Sweet's suitcase was still beside the bed, and there were a few books on the bedside table. Even the quilt on the bed was not folded, as if he had left in a hurry in the middle of the night. Hugo dumped a large pile of books directly into the box, then thought about it and took out a few more books. He thought it would be too much trouble to take them back. As for the summer homework, he planned to borrow Maureen's for reference. Aren't you going to pack up? Hugo looked at the mess of books and clothes on Maureen's bedside table, as well as the candy wrappers left by Doi. I'm going home tomorrow. Oh, yes, pack up. Maureen waved his wand carelessly, and the suitcase under the bed popped out and opened. All the clothes and books automatically flew up and were packed into the suitcase in an orderly manner. The fruit peels and paper scraps ran to the trash can by themselves. It only took a minute for all the luggage to be installed. Hugo looked at his messy luggage after packing all night, and then looked at Maureen's tightly packed luggage, feeling envious and jealous. That's too much? How can you pack so quickly? Help me! Hugo shouted. Maureen also waved her wand at Hugo. They climbed into bed quickly, and Hugo fell asleep quickly. Snoring sounded in the dormitory. Toby turned over and muttered softly. Doi lay on Maureen's chest with her legs spread out and swayed her tail. Maureen put Doi next to the pillow. He had been thinking about Sweet. What on earth was this guy thinking? How could he leave secretly? Did he not believe that the headmaster and Professor Francis would help his father? It was late at night. He looked at his watch. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. He turned over and fell asleep. The next day, after they had breakfast in the auditorium, they dragged their luggage to Hogsmeade Village. Many people were very excited. After a busy semester, they naturally couldn't wait to go home. Hugo and Lily were happily discussing their summer vacation plans. Hugo didn't want to go to boring summer camp again, and Lily said that his family would go out for a while every summer vacation, so Hugo planned to go out with them this year. The latest novels are first published on the 6th book bar. What about you? Maureen, what are your plans for the summer vacation? Hugo turned his head and asked. Me? No plans. I'll probably go out with my grandfather to solve cases. Maureen thought for a while, or go to a concert, a Quidditch game, or something like that. Where's Anran? Lily asked. Anran dragged her light luggage, which was lightened by Maureen's spell, like a feather. She said, I don't have any plans for the summer vacation. You can go with me to a concert or Quidditch. Maureen suggested, my grandfather can usually get tickets. Really? Great, I haven't seen a wizard concert yet. Anran looked particularly excited. During the Christmas holiday, she went to a fantasy park with Maureen and the others. Many worlds of wizards always made her curious. They climbed onto the train, and the train slowly drove towards London. When they got home, Maureen couldn't wait to ask Alton about Floyd, wanting to know how the Ministry of Magic was tracking down Floyd. I don't know, but this matter is quite serious in the Ministry of Magic. Many people are trying to catch Lucas or Floyd. I'm not very clear about the details. Alton said. What about Goodwin? Grandpa, does this name have anything to do with the Scarlet Blood Hand? Maureen threw the luggage into the bedroom, then jumped onto the sofa and sat next to Alton and asked, why are you so interested in the Scarlet Blood Hand? Alton frowned. It's been a long time. Chapter 457 Scarlet Blood Hand. I'm just curious. I occasionally hear people mention this person's name, but I'm not sure what it means. Maureen asked, is Scarlet Blood Hand very mysterious, Grandpa? Alton pondered for a moment and said, Scarlet Blood Hand is a synonym for danger. That was more than 10 years ago. There was a wizard who called himself Scarlet Blood Hand. He did all kinds of evil and committed many major crimes. Dark Wizard. Maureen was surprised. Almost. Just like Lucas now, he has a very high level of magic. He has repeatedly confronted Aurors head-on. The most powerful time was when he faced 20 Aurors alone, and all 20 Aurors were defeated by him. Alton said slowly. Awesome. Maureen said. Those who can become Aurors are elites among wizards, but one person can actually face the siege of 20 Aurors and solve the Aurors. This kind of wizard is a bit scary. But he suddenly remembered that when he was in the Muggle town of Peters, Sweet's father was dealing with more than 10 Aurors alone, including an old witch with unfathomable strength and the real Lucas. If Floyd hadn't been distracted to protect his house from being destroyed by the spell, it would have been impossible for these Aurors to capture him. Maureen had already understood the general idea. When Floyd used the blood curse, his arm would bleed. This was the special ability of the Clive family, using their own blood to cast magic. This kind of magic was very powerful. What did the Scarlet Blood Hand do specifically? Maureen asked again. Theft. The Ministry of Magic's report also recorded murder, etc. The nature was extremely bad. Alton said. Then what? Did the Ministry of Magic catch him? Maureen asked. No, after committing many heinous crimes, he disappeared. Let me think about it. Oh, by the way, speaking of this, I remember that when Professor Francis of your school was an Auror, he was responsible for hunting down the Scarlet Blood Hand. Alton said. What about Goodwin? Maureen continued to ask. This man's identity is very mysterious. Apart from knowing that he is Scarlet Blood Hand, no one knows his real name, let alone what he looks like. Alton put down the Tomorrow's Wizard newspaper in his hand, thought for a moment, and continued, but later in a certain arrest operation, the Auror accidentally learned that he had another name, Goodwin. I don't remember the details, but this was the first time the Ministry of Magic had a further understanding of him. If they knew the name, it should be easy for the Auror to catch him, right? Maureen asked. The number of wizards is not small, but it is not too many either. The Ministry of Magic only needs to check, and it will be easy to know who is called Goodwin. Alton shook his head and said, some names will be cast with very powerful magic. For example, decades ago, the name Voldemort would be sought out as soon as it was mentioned. Scarlet Hand cast a similar magic on the name Goodwin. He was really good at it, and the Aurors couldn't do anything with him. What happened next? After that, Scarlet Hand disappeared, and the Ministry of Magic didn't catch the criminal. Everyone was saying that with the ability of Scarlet Hand, he could become the next Voldemort, but he didn't seem to have the ambition to rule the wizarding world like Voldemort. He only liked to steal some things and didn't kill many people. Of course, he had killed people, so the Ministry of Magic had to catch him. Alton's words surprised Maureen. The Floyd he met in the town last time was actually a dark wizard? No wonder Professor Francis had such a strange reaction after learning the name Goodwin. It turned out that it was his responsibility to hunt down the Scarlet Hand. Last time I heard that the people in the Ministry of Magic suspected that Lucas, who escaped from prison, might be the Scarlet Hand. I heard that he resisted the spells of more than 10 Aurors alone and was still at ease. But because it has been more than 10 years, no one is familiar with the Scarlet Hand, so there is no evidence. Alton added. Nicole came to find Professor Francis to confirm whether the Floyd he caught was the Scarlet Hand because when he was in the town, Floyd's way of performing magic was very unique and very similar to the Scarlet Hand. But the Scarlet Hand was followed up by Professor Francis, and Nicole was not familiar with it, so he came to find Professor Francis. If all this can be confirmed, Nicole will not only catch a Lucas, but also a Scarlet Hand, which is enough to make his career brilliant. I didn't see that he was such a dangerous person. Maureen couldn't help muttering. What are you mumbling about? Alton asked. No, I mean, this guy doesn't sound too bad, at least compared to Voldemort. He's better, right? Don't talk nonsense. Even if he's not a dark wizard like Voldemort, he's killed people. He's a murderer, understand? Alton said seriously. The latest novels are first published on 69 Shuba. Understood, Grandpa. Maureen nodded quickly. Maureen actually didn't expect that he would actually talk alone with a dark wizard who lived more than 10 years ago last time. He was probably a newborn calf who was not afraid of tigers. But it seems that this Scarlet Blood Hand seems to have turned over a new leaf, otherwise he wouldn't have married a Muggle woman to live in a small town. Sweet's mother probably understood what kind of person Freud was, so she didn't want Sweet to contact him. In this case, the pendant on Sweet's neck can be explained clearly. It has to be said that the descendants of the 12 families guarding the stone archway seem to be very extraordinary. For example, the descendants of the three Peveril brothers, Dumbledore and Harry Potter, are well known for their outstanding abilities. Dumbledore's magic talent is obvious to all. Voldemort, the descendant of Slytherin, messed up the wizarding world and almost overturned the entire wizarding world. He is one of the most notorious dark wizards in history. Wolf King Rakenlove is also a famous dark wizard. Unlike other werewolves who can only transform when the full moon comes, he can transform into a werewolf at any time. At that time, he had a terrible ambition to bite all wizards into werewolves. In addition, the ambitious Ping, who is now hiding in the painting and living for hundreds of years by painting, this guy is thinking about the magic of immortality. Even the Horcrux is the black magic invented by him. He has also left countless paintings that can flow between each other in his paintings. It is too difficult to kill him. As for Clive, who has the blood curse, he committed crimes frequently and was able to fool the Aurors of the Ministry of Magic. He could fight against 20 Aurors alone, which made the people of the Ministry of Magic helpless. He was a very powerful existence. Maureen still remembered that when he faced Paingard last year, Paingard said that the people of the Clive family disdained to be Death Eaters. Now he understood why. Paingard had been hiding in the painting for hundreds of years, gathering information everywhere. He had long known the origin of the Scarlet Blood Hand that caused the Ministry of Magic a lot of headaches. In terms of ability, the people of the Clive family were not weaker than Voldemort, so how could they follow Voldemort? Chapter 458 Bloody Owl. According to Hufflepuff, each of the 12 families guarding the Stone Arch has extraordinary abilities. But unfortunately, after being passed down to the present, the people of these 12 families seem to have declined. For example, the last descendant of the Addams family is actually a squib, and Anron's parents are even Muggles. The descendant of the Cuthbert family is Professor Binns, who is just a ghost and teaches the history of magic. The descendants of Slytherin are considered extinct after Voldemort's death. As for Gryffindor and Hufflepuff, no one knows where their descendants are. Although Ravenclaw has a ghost daughter, she is now missing. The remaining Clive family also has many contradictions, and Paingard can only live in the painting. After all, it seems that the Potter family is the most prosperous and has a high status in the wizarding world. Speaking of special abilities, Maureen doesn't know much, but those who he already knows are extraordinary. The Phoenix of the Dumbledore family, the unstoppable legilimency of the Hufflepuff family, the Parseltongue of Slytherin that can control powerful basilisks, and the special abilities of the Gryffindor and Ravenclaw families are not known for the time being. Anron's treatment of Magus, Maureen felt that her ability might not be fully utilized. The powerful blood curse of the Clive family, escaping from Azkaban is not a big problem. Paingard's unparalleled painting magic, and Rakenlove's transformation into a werewolf. Maureen only knows these, but these abilities are enough to amaze people. Okay, this kind of thing is not something you should get involved in. Go to sleep. Alton interrupted Maureen's thoughts. Maureen walked back to his bedroom. It was already the end of June and the temperature was hot. He walked to the window and opened it to let the wind blow in. But at this moment, in the night sky in the distance, an owl flew towards this side. He felt very strange. Who would send him a letter at this time? He just came back from school today. When the owl flew closer, Maureen suddenly found that something was wrong with this owl. Normal owls are either brown, black or white, but this is a red owl, as if it was covered with blood, which looked particularly strange in the moonlight. But he soon realized that he had seen this kind of situation somewhere before. The blood mist floating on the owl was actually a blood curse. Maureen was shocked. Could it be Sweet's owl? But Sweet couldn't use magic outside of school, even if he had a special blood curse, and there was no need to cast a blood curse on the owl, right? Could it be? A thought flashed through Maureen's mind. At this time, the owl had already flapped its wings and landed on the desk next to Maureen's window. It shook its feathers and looked a little tired. Maureen took out a note from the small leather bag under the owl's feet and spread it out, but strangely, there was no word written on the paper. Invisible ink. Maureen picked up the wand and tapped a letter. Show yourself quickly. But the letter did not move at all. It was just a very simple piece of letter. There was nothing special about it, and it seemed that there was no invisible ink in it. Just send me a blank piece of letter. What does this mean? When Maureen was wondering if he had missed the address, the blood curse on the owl next to him suddenly condensed and formed a drop of blood. The drop of blood circled around Maureen twice, as if confirming Maureen's identity. Finally, the drop of blood automatically dripped onto the letter in Maureen's hand. A line of small words written in thin blood appeared on the letter. Maureen recognized the handwriting on the note at a glance. Floyd. Maureen was not unfamiliar with Floyd's handwriting. Before Floyd had any trouble, he often sent things to Sweet to Maureen and asked Maureen to pass them on. So Maureen still knew Floyd's handwriting. "Is it because of Sweet that you sent me a letter at this time?" Maureen asked in confusion. The content of the letter was very simple, with only one line of words: "Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, under the maple tree next to the town of Set. I am not Lucas. If you believe me, please don't tell others. I know you can apparel it. I have no ill intentions." No need to reply. This owl can't find me. Set Town, what is that place? Maureen didn't know what Set Town was. When he was thinking about whether to ask his grandfather, the handwriting on the letter paper melted again, forming a strange small map, and the exact location of the town was marked on the map. Just like what Sweet showed Maureen, this map also outlined a small town of woods. Maureen only needed to know the exact location to map it there. When he just memorized this location, the blood on the paper had already burned with a whoosh. Maureen quickly threw it away, and the letter paper was burned without even black ash left. What a weird ability. The latest novel is first published on the 69th Book Forum. Maureen has never liked this blood curse. Every time he casts it, he has to cut his hand and squeeze out some blood. How much food does he have to eat to replenish his blood? But it cannot be denied that Floyd is very careful. His blood curse ensures that only the right people can see the contents of the letter. The owl flapped its wings and looked a little confused. It seemed that it was forced to deliver the letter. Maureen took out biscuits and fed it, and gave it some water, and let it squeeze with his owl. It is estimated that this owl was a little dazed by the blood curse and might hit the wall if it flew out. "So do you want to go?" Maureen just heard that his grandfather Alton mentioned that Floyd was the so-called Scarlet Blood Hand and seemed to have killed people before, which made him a little hesitant. However, considering the relationship between Floyd and Sweet, and the fact that he is not Lucas, Maureen decided to go and see tomorrow. Sweet should be with him, and Maureen wanted to confirm it. The next morning, Alton had already prepared breakfast and came in to call Maureen to get up. "I'm going to the Muggle amusement park to deal with a magic roller coaster. Do you want to go?" Alton said cheerfully. "Maybe you can also experience the things in the Muggle amusement park." "Grandpa, I'm not going. I didn't sleep well yesterday. I'll sleep a little longer," Maureen said listlessly in the quilt. "Okay, I'll be back at noon." Alton nodded, walked out and closed the door. Maureen quickly got up and put the wand in his pocket. After making sure that Alton took the things and apparated away, he ran out, hurriedly took a meat sandwich, and apparated away in the living room. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 459 Treehouse. This is also a town where Muggles gather. Maureen was much more cautious when he apparated this time. He apparated to a tree branch on purpose. There were no Muggles around, so no one saw him. 400 or 500 meters away was the Muggle settlement. In front of it was a rugged gravel road with a row of bushes growing in all directions. There was also a small river running through the town. Maureen jumped down from the maple tree and stood under the thick maple tree to scan the surroundings. This place was relatively hidden. The location was a little off, and the road was difficult to walk. Generally, Muggles would not walk here. What time is it now? Maureen looked at his pocket watch. It was already 8:50. The time agreed with Floyd was 9 o'clock. When he was about to find a place to sit, a hand suddenly rested on his shoulder. This sudden appearance of the hand startled Maureen. He looked back and found that the hand actually stretched out from the maple tree, as if it had merged with a maple tree, or as if a human hand had grown on a living tree trunk. "Come in." A low, hoarse voice sounded in the maple tree. Maureen recognized it as Floyd's voice. "You're not a magus who can turn into a plant, are you?" Maureen couldn't help but mutter, but the hand had already retracted from the trunk. Maureen hesitated for a moment and walked straight to the trunk. Just like the magic wall at King's Cross Station in London, This trunk was also cast with a special magic. Maureen walked in without any hindrance, and then he found that he seemed to be standing on a staircase. The stairs were made of wood, winding upwards. The walls were all wooden boards, and there were several torches hanging on them, which slightly illuminated the surroundings. "Come up." Floyd stood on 4 or 5 steps. He was wearing a gray shirt and jeans, just like Muggles, and his face looked a little tired. He turned the torches, and the flames of these torches shrank. Maureen knew what these torches were for. It was a special kind of protective magic. Once someone forcibly invaded, it would actively attack the intruder. Alton had mentioned it to him before. "Should I believe you?" Maureen asked. "At least you came alone." Floyd forced a smile. He took 2 steps up, and then opened a wooden door. "I haven't decided whether to believe you or not." Maureen didn't move. He looked up at Floyd, and said, "Scarlet Blood Hand, is that so?" Floyd was stunned for a moment. His eyes were a little surprised. "How did you know about this?" "My grandfather works in the Ministry of Magic." Maureen said, "Although you are not Lucas, how do you explain the matter of the Scarlet Blood Hand?" "The Ministry of Magic doesn't know my identity. How did you know it?" Floyd asked. "Guess, your very special blood curse magic." Maureen didn't hide anything. "I know a little about the blood curse ability of the Clive family." "You are really amazing. I have never seen a child as sharp as you." Floyd praised. "I'm not here to listen to your praise of me," Maureen said simply and clearly. Floyd was silent for a moment, shook his head and said, "Everyone has a past that they don't want to talk about. I don't want to explain the matter of the Scarlet Blood Hand." "Then why should I believe you?" Maureen said in a deep voice, "I heard from my grandfather that you killed people before." Floyd's lips moved twice and said, "There are some things you won't understand." Maureen frowned. He didn't know whether to believe Floyd's words. "I won't hurt you or anything, you can rest assured about this." Floyd stood at the door and made an inviting gesture. Maureen shrugged his shoulders. Anyway, he was here. If Sweet was here, Floyd would not do anything to him, so it didn't matter. He stepped onto the steps and stepped into the wooden door. Then Maureen found himself in a small wooden house. This small wooden house was very strange. It had all the simple furniture and a small kitchen. The tables and chairs were all made of wood. The floor was a bit rough, and there were faint green leaves growing in some places. There was a bed in the corner and a table lamp next to it. It seemed that all the facilities that a whole house should have were available. What surprised Maureen the most was that the cabin had several windows. The sunlight outside the window was lazily shining through the leaves of the maple tree, rustling on the floor. The east window was not blocked by branches, and the scenery of the town could be seen directly. "Sit down." Floyd waved his wand, and the chair automatically moved to Maureen's side. A pot of tea and a cup flew from the kitchen and automatically poured a cup of tea for Maureen. Maureen looked at the house and couldn't help but say, "Is this a treehouse?" The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. "Yes, it's a kind of wooden house I modified myself, specially for emergency situations. It was originally just a palm-sized toy model. I cast a magic on it. Just press it into a tree and it will automatically turn the tree into a cabin." Floyd waved his wand again and disposed of some lunchboxes in the corner. Maureen stared at the wand in his hand. He remembered that Floyd's wand should have been confiscated by the Ministry of Magic. "I stole it from a wizard. There's nothing I can do. My wand has been broken by them." Floyd found Maureen looking at his wand and explained casually, "You don't lie like a fugitive." Maureen looked at Floyd. Although Floyd was not as energetic as the last time he saw him, he looked pretty good. His hair was neatly combed and his clothes were clean and fresh. "What do you think I should be like?" Floyd asked back. "I shouldn't be the kind of unkempt, pale, thin, ragged, etc." Maureen sat down, but he didn't touch the teacup. He thought it was better to be cautious. Maureen knew a lot of wizard fugitives since he was a child. Ordinary fugitives were too busy to avoid the pursuit of the Ministry of Magic, so how could they have time to get themselves ready? But Floyd looked much better than ordinary fugitives. "I like tidiness." Floyd pulled out a chair and sat down, then asked impatiently, "Is Sweet okay now? Where is he? I forgot to ask you which orphanage he was in last time." Maureen was slightly stunned, and he said in surprise, "Is Sweet not with you? I thought he came to see you." "He didn't come to see me, and he won't come to see me." "What do you mean?" Floyd felt something was wrong. "But he disappeared 2 days before the holiday missing." Floyd was shocked. How could he disappear? You didn't know? The professors thought he went to see you, and all his things are still in school, but he is gone. Maureen explained the matter briefly. The more Floyd listened, the more surprised he was. He has never come to look for me, and it is impossible for him to find me. How could he disappear for no reason? Didn't he look for you? Maureen felt vaguely that something was wrong. Principal McGonagall and Professor Francis believed that Sweet must have secretly gone to look for his father without telling anyone. This was why Maureen came to confirm today, but Floyd told him that Sweet was not here. Chapter 460 The Terrible Plan. Floyd would never joke about Sweet. If Sweet wasn't here, where did he go? You said he took off the Fang pendant. Floyd asked with a gloomy look. Yes, you should be able to find him based on this, right? Maureen remembered that Sweet had found the town of Peters based on his blood curse. Floyd had been looking for Sweet's whereabouts over the years, but because of the pendant, he had never found it. Floyd picked up the wand, cut a drop of blood from his finger, and whispered a difficult spell. The drop of blood trembled slightly, but returned to calm again. Can't find it. Floyd shook his head. He should have put on the pendant again. This is bad. Maureen stood up and knocked over the chair, but he didn't help it up. Where are you going? Floyd said anxiously. Do you know where Sweet is? I'll go with you. Go home. Maureen said in a deep voice, I need to write a letter to tell Principal McGonagall and Professor Francis. They originally thought Sweet went to find you, but if he is not here, then it is very likely that, I have a hunch, Pinged. Although he didn't know what Pinged wanted to do with Sweet, he always felt that this matter was inseparable from Pinged. Sweet couldn't leave school at this time for no reason. Even if he left school, he should be looking for Floyd, but Floyd was being hunted by the Ministry of Magic and was unwilling to take risks, so there was only one possibility. Ping found him. Maureen told Floyd his guess, and Floyd's face turned pale instantly. Why would he go to find Ping? He didn't go to find Ping, so he couldn't know where Ping was. Ping must have taken the initiative to write him a letter in your name, so he left school to see you. You should know that before Ping came to me, he originally planned to use his body to be reborn. He means a lot to Ping. Maureen had explained Ping's matter to Floyd last time. Floyd suddenly came to his senses. No wonder. Floyd said. What's no wonder? Maureen asked. I ventured to a wizard community a few days ago and stole a newspaper. Floyd said in a deep voice, I heard that the stone arch of the Ministry of Magic was stolen on the day I sneaked out of Azkaban. So, Maureen has always been curious about how Floyd did it. He heard from Alton that few criminals can escape from Azkaban alone. In the past, someone was able to escape by turning into an animal through the ability of an animagus, but now it is impossible. The prison facilities in Azkaban have been improved a lot. While the happiness is sucked away by the Dementors, the magic deformation of the body will be restricted. The animagus will be restricted. Wizards without wands will be forced to wear shackles that restrain magic, making it difficult for prisoners to escape. Floyd is the first prisoner to successfully escape in 20 years. When I left Azkaban, I was actually subject to a lot of restrictions. Although I have a blood curse, the prison magic of Azkaban is very powerful, but that day a confinement magic was broken outside. Floyd said. Broken. This kind of confinement magic is used to restrict the magic of wizards. It is very powerful. Even if it is broken, it will immediately repair itself. There is only about 10 seconds left. Generally, wizards in prison will have numb senses because of the Dementors, and it is difficult to detect, but I have a blood curse to protect myself. Anyway, I seized this opportunity and escaped with my special ability. Floyd did not hide this. There are very few wizards who can go to a place like Azkaban to cause damage. Many dark wizards avoid this place as much as possible, and it is even more impossible to simply break out of the prison. A spell outside Azkaban was broken by someone, creating an opportunity for Floyd to come out on purpose, and the purpose of doing so was, thinking of the sudden loss of the stone archway of the Ministry of Magic, Maureen suddenly understood. You mean to lure the tiger away from the mountain? Yes, I can't escape from prison by myself. Someone helped me and made me the target of the Ministry of Magic. Floyd glanced at Maureen and found that Maureen's mind was very fast. The more Maureen thought about it, the more surprised he became. The Ministry of Magic had been broken into twice. The first time, the damaged time converter was lost. The second time, so many black magic items were lost. It was actually impossible to break into the Ministry of Magic for the third time at this time. Even if it was pinged, he would need to consider it. The Ministry of Magic had already increased its guards. They would not succeed so easily again. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. However, the people in the Ministry of Magic had just caught the so-called Lucas and put all their attention on this criminal Lucas. Once they heard that Lucas had escaped from Azkaban, it would probably cause a huge sensation in the Ministry of Magic, and many elites would definitely go out to investigate the matter. At this time, the Ministry of Magic would be in chaos. The elites were all out, and the guards would become empty. Only at this time would Pinged have the opportunity to guide the old witch and Lucas to steal the stone arch. The reason why Pinged framed you is not only for the black cube in your hand, but also for his subsequent plan. Maureen carefully sorted out the whole story, and the more he thought about it, the more shocked he was. Pinged first asked Lucas and the old witch to frame Floyd, making him mistaken for Lucas, and with the help of the Ministry of Magic, subdued Floyd and got the black cube in his hand. This is just the first step. Next, he will assist Floyd in escaping from prison and create chaos. The Ministry of Magic has already regarded Floyd as Lucas. For the reputation of the Ministry of Magic, it will definitely do its best to shift the focus to the fugitive Lucas, so that they can fish in troubled waters and steal the stone archway. This is the most critical second step. Pinged was well aware of the blood curse of the Clive family. As long as Lucas or the old witch attacked the guard spell of Azkaban, this spell might not have much effect on other prisoners, but for people like Scarlet Bloodhand, it would be enough to take this opportunity to escape. And letting Floyd escape was not a big problem for Pinged, because they knew that Floyd would not be able to escape the Ministry of Magic search in time, and it would not have any impact on their plan. Throughout the whole process, all wizards, including the Aurors of the Ministry of Magic, were led by Pinged. Such a person is really terrible. Chapter 461 Writing a Letter. If that's true, Pinged is much more cunning than we thought. Floyd said. He had never met Pinged before, because he hid himself very deeply, lived with Muggles, and was almost isolated from the magic world. In addition, no one knew that Pinged was still alive, so he had never seen this person. An old monster who had been hiding in the painting for hundreds of years. Every step he took was carefully planned. First, he looked for the black cube everywhere, and then he went to steal the stone arch of the Ministry of Magic. All the plans were carried out as he wished under his arrangement. If it weren't for the change of Maureen, Pinged would have been reborn last year. But even though Maureen's plan was disrupted by the world in the painting, his plan this year did not deviate much. He got 10 black cubes and stole the stone arch. At present, there are only 2 black cubes left, one in the hands of Arnok in the painting, and one in Professor Binns. Maureen vaguely felt that the 2 black cubes were not safe. Pinged used the magic of the painting to travel freely in the places where there were magic photos or paintings in the wizarding world. With his omnipresent ability, it seemed that it was only a matter of time before he found the 2 black cubes. No wonder Professor Binns did not mention the black cube to Principal McGonagall and the others. Principal McGonagall and other professors were wizards. Wherever they were, there would be magic paintings. Once they let it slip, knowing where Professor Binns' descendants were, they would definitely follow them to find the black cube. Professor Binns' choice to keep silent about this matter was a very wise choice. Maureen pondered for a long time and said, I can't deal with this alone. I can only ask Principal McGonagall and Professor Francis for help. They may help find Sweet. Professor Binns could not tell Principal McGonagall and Professor Francis about their black cube, but Maureen still had to ask them for help about Sweet. Last year at school, Maureen had no idea that he would be dealing with an old monster who had lived in the painting for hundreds of years. At that time, Maureen was lucky. Relying on the rules of the world in the painting, he had countless dragon flame cold repellents. With this potion, he could stimulate the magic in his body and defeat Pinged. But in reality, Pinged had 2 very difficult helpers. Both Lucas and the old witch were not so easy to deal with. He was a child and could not resist 2 dark wizards. Arnold could not be contacted. He did not want to involve his grandfather, so he could only find the professor at the school. Thank you for your help. Floyd nodded. He also knew how bad this matter was. Now he was wanted and was not familiar with Pinged. He could only rely on Principal McGonagall and others to find Sweet. Maureen remembered something and added, also, you have to understand that if I tell Principal McGonagall and Professor Francis, they will know that I have seen you, and they may come to you. I can't guarantee that I will hide anything, Floyd had almost no hesitation. Just find Sweet. He will force me to tell you where you are. Professor Francis will not let you go. Maureen emphasized. Professor Francis is not so easy to fool. Every time Maureen wants to hide something, Professor Francis can always find loopholes in his words, and even Maureen finds it difficult. Especially now that it is a holiday, if Professor Francis goes to find Alton and asks Alton to persuade Maureen, Maureen is very worried that he can't hide the truth. Although Alton will not scold him, he will definitely be anxious when he knows that he has a relationship with a fugitive. Floyd was silent for a moment, then said sadly, "If Professor Francis can help find Sweet, I will cooperate." "What about Nim and his mother?" Floyd shook his head. "They will be fine. The Ministry of Magic has no reason to touch them. Nim is also a wizard, but he needs to go to a Muggle school to learn basic knowledge. I can't go to find them." Maureen glanced at Floyd, and without saying anything more, he turned and left. After Maureen left the treehouse, he apparated home. Alton hadn't come back yet. He hurried back to his bedroom, took out a piece of parchment, and wrote down what he had done when he went to see Floyd and found that Sweet was not with Floyd. But halfway through, he remembered what Sweet said. Sweet said last time that he didn't want Nim to grow up without a father like him. Professor Francis used to be the Auror responsible for capturing the Scarlet Hand. With his cold and inhuman temperament, he would definitely treat the Scarlet Hand incident separately. Scarlet Blood Hand was once a very arrogant wizard who committed many thefts in succession. Even 20 Aurors were no match for him. The Ministry of Magic also determined that he was involved in several murders. Professor Francis would not let such a wizard go. Once Floyd was caught again, Maureen was sure that the staff of the Ministry of Magic would not give him any chance to escape this time and would directly sentence him to death. Maureen glanced at the photo of his parents on the desk and pursed his lips. In the photo, his parents were holding him, and Arnold was standing behind him, smiling at his children and grandchildren. The family was happy. Maureen liked this scene. The latest novels are first published on 6th Book Bar on September 9th. He shook his head, crumpled the parchment into a ball, threw it aside, and took out a new piece of parchment. "It's really strange that I would help a criminal." Maureen often followed Alton to solve cases. Alton's attitude towards criminals was very straightforward. If you make a mistake, you must pay the price. You should be punished and imprisoned. This is the only way to ensure the order of the wizarding world. Although Maureen was not very obedient, he also subconsciously recognized this truth. Even if Floyd was not Lucas, he was once the Scarlet Blood Hand and was involved in several lives. This was irrefutable. But this time, Maureen didn't want a former criminal to be caught by the Ministry of Magic again. "I don't know if I'm doing the right thing," Maureen muttered, picked up the pen, and rewrote it. He changed it to Floyd writing a letter to ask him about Sweet, but he didn't know that Sweet had disappeared long ago. He also emphasized in the letter that he didn't know where Floyd was. Maureen wrote a letter, rolled up the letter paper, and opened the owl cage. The owl that Floyd used the blood curse to deliver the letter yesterday was still curled up in the cage, looking very listless. He planned to use his own owl. Maureen stuffed the letter into the leather bag on his owl's leg and said, "Go find Principal McGonagall or Professor Francis, whichever is closer, please." The owl pecked his hand lightly, then spread its wings and leaped into the sky. Chapter 462 Professor Francis's Sense of Smell. The owl delivered the letter very quickly. Almost an hour later, there was a knock on the door. When Maureen ran to open the door, he found that both Principal McGonagall and Professor Francis were standing outside the door, looking at him seriously. "I received your letter and immediately contacted the principal to wrap it here," Professor Francis said indifferently. "Is anyone at home?" Principal McGonagall asked. "No, my grandfather hasn't come back yet." Maureen hurriedly invited the two of them in, and then went to get a kettle to boil water. "We are not here for tea. You don't have to bother to tell us the details of the matter." Professor Francis went straight to the point. "You said, did Freud write to you?" "Yes, Freud wrote to me yesterday. He asked me about Sweet, and then I knew that Sweet was not with him." Maureen gave up boiling water and sat on the sofa, facing the two of them. He knew that the next questioning would be another round. "Where is the letter?" Principal McGonagall asked. "It burned down. There was a strange magic that caused it to burn up by itself, leaving no ashes." Maureen was telling the truth. He was afraid that the two would not believe him, so he added, "The owl that delivered the letter is still with me. It seems to have been cast under some spell, and it looks dizzy." Where is it? Professor Francis asked. In the bedroom. There is a place next to the window of my bedroom where bird cages are hung. Maureen stood up and said. Principal McGonagall and Professor Francis also stood up and followed Maureen to the bedroom. The two of them carefully examined the owl, which was still in a state of depression, and each took out their wands and chanted a few detection spells. Principal McGonagall asked hesitantly, Francis, you knew him best before. This kind of spell very familiar. Professor Francis recognized it at once. He and Principal McGonagall looked at each other and said in a low voice, It's him, no doubt. Are you sure? Principal McGonagall asked. I know the characteristics of this spell. Professor Francis poked the owl's wings with his wand. The owl has been cast with a powerful spell. Professor Francis probably knows more about the Dark Wizard Scarlet Bloodhand than anyone else. After all, he used to be the Auror in charge of this case. Why did he come to you? Headmaster McGonagall turned around and asked Maureen. Because he couldn't find Sweet, and he had met me before, so he chose to ask me about Sweet's whereabouts. Maureen said. Would he trust you so much? If I remember correctly, your grandfather is from the Ministry of Magic. Would a fugitive who has been hiding for so many years take this risk? Professor Francis didn't completely believe what Maureen said. It was not common sense for a fugitive to contact a child who is related to the Ministry of Magic. Because of the Black Cube, Professor, have you forgotten? 12 Black Cubes, 12 Guardian families, he is from the Clive family. Peeng took the Black Cube from him, and last year Peeng wanted to make trouble for me and Sweet again. He knew this. Maureen said. If he wrote to you to ask where Sweet is, you have to reply, right? Professor Francis asked. Yes, but this owl is under a spell, it can't fly back at all, let alone find where Floyd is. Professor Francis said coldly, then tell me, since he came to ask you, the owl can't fly back, and ordinary owls can't find him, how can he get information about Sweet from you? In other words, what means are you going to use to answer his questions? Maureen's heart skipped a beat. Professor Francis was really good at asking questions. He always found unreasonable things in Maureen's words. No wonder Nicole said he was a very capable Auror. Professor Francis's investigative ability was really strong. Unless he wrote to see you, that's the only way to explain why he contacted you. Are you hiding something from us, Maureen? Professor Francis asked coldly, are you going to help a criminal? Maureen was really fed up with this professor. Every time he spoke to Professor Francis, he had to be careful. In front of this experienced Auror, Maureen always got into trouble. Fortunately, before Professor Francis came here, he had thought about all the possible issues, including this one. He used a kind of parchment, the kind that can communicate in real time. He writes something over there, and I can show it over here. Professor, you should know about this kind of thing, right? Maureen said. Maureen was not unfamiliar with this kind of parchment, because Arnold once gave him one. When he was in the first grade, he asked Arnold questions every day with this parchment. This kind of parchment is very special and rare, he relies on this. Maureen said very confidently, he told me that when Sweet was not with him, the parchment burned up, leaving no residue. The latest novel is first published on the 69th book bar. The parchment burned up for real, and Professor Francis should also understand that with the other party's cautiousness, no traces will be left. Maureen's excuse can be used to cover it up. Professor Francis wanted to continue asking, but Maureen hurriedly said, Professor, now we should find a way to find Sweet. Last time we thought Sweet went to find his father, but now he is not with his father at all. Don't you think it's a bit strange? I have a hunch that his disappearance is very likely related to Pangard. Although there is no evidence, Maureen still thinks this possibility is very high. Principal McGonagall pondered for a moment and said, I understand. If this is the case, Sweet's safety must be taken seriously. Professor Francis and I will find a way to find him. As for you, stay at home and don't go anywhere. I will take this owl back to study it first. Remember, once he contacts you again, you must notify us immediately. Professor Francis waved his wand, conjured up a cage, and put the owl into his cage. I understand, Professor. Maureen nodded, and he sent Principal McGonagall and Professor Francis to the door. When the two of them were about to leave, Maureen asked again, Professor, if Floyd is caught, how do you plan to treat him? Professor Francis looked at Maureen indifferently and said slowly, find out what happened, and then do what you have to do. After he finished speaking, he and Principal McGonagall apparated and left Maureen's house. Do what you have to do. Is that a matter of official business? Maureen frowned. He felt that things were terrible. Chapter 463 Uninvited Guests at Night. Maureen did not tell Alton about this. He did not know where to find Sweet. Pangard was always cautious and would not let anyone find any clues so easily. Even Maureen did not have much hope in Principal McGonagall and Professor Francis. He suddenly began to miss Arnok. Apart from his grandfather, Arnok was the only person he trusted the most. Whenever Arnok was around, Maureen felt that there was nothing he could not solve, but now Maureen could not contact this mysterious old man, which made him very upset. In the following days, Maureen went to Arnok's house every day to find Arnok in the painting and confirm the black cube. Fortunately, Arnok in the painting was also very powerful, and the black cube was still safe and sound. It has been a week since the holiday, and there has been no news from Sweet. No one told him what happened. He now focuses on time and space magic every day. Walker said there are a total of 13 time and space magic, but he has only learned 2 so far. This kind of magic is too difficult. Maureen is already a gifted person, but he has not mastered the second magic after learning it for half a year. For the time-space magic of Afterimage, Walker's minimum requirement is to display the information within the past 10 minutes, but Maureen can now do it for 8 minutes, and it feels that 10 minutes is not far away. After I master this magic, I will sneak back to school to learn the third magic. Maureen looked at himself walking around in the room. There was another self in the room at this time. The self 5 minutes ago was pacing in the room. Now he sat on the bed and watched the self 5 minutes ago continue to pace in the room. Although this magic is just a shadow, it can almost reach the point of being real. If you don't touch it, you can't tell which one is real. 5 minutes later, Maureen, who was cast by the magic, sat on the bed and overlapped with Maureen. Maureen moved a little to the side, and then the two selves sat side by side. Maureen, why is the light still on in your room? It's past 10 o'clock, it's time to go to bed. Alton said outside. Go to bed right away, Grandpa. Maureen waved his wand and made his other self disappear. Alton walked in and yawned. Go to bed early so you can be energetic tomorrow. Got it, Grandpa. Maureen lay down on the bed obediently. Alton snapped his fingers and turned off the light before going back to his bedroom. Maureen lay on the bed, drove out the messy thoughts in his mind, and then fell asleep in a daze. Around midnight, Maureen suddenly felt a chill coming around him, making him shiver involuntarily. He opened his eyes sleepily and pulled the quilt. It was strange that he could still feel cold in the summer. He turned over and planned to continue sleeping, but suddenly he vaguely felt that there seemed to be someone standing next to him. He immediately opened his eyes wide. Who? Maureen screamed, sat up suddenly, and reached out to grab the wand on the bedside table. A figure was standing beside his bed. The moonlight poured in from the window, passing through the man's body, making the figure seem very illusory, but Maureen recognized the man's identity at once. Helena. Maureen asked in surprise. Standing beside his bed was Helena, the ghost of Ravenclaw, who had been missing since last summer vacation. This ghost had been missing for almost a school year. Suddenly standing beside Maureen's bed in the middle of the night, if Maureen had not been able to endure it mentally, he would have been frightened to death. Helena made a gesture to keep quiet, and Alton's hurried footsteps were heard outside. What's wrong? What's wrong? Maureen. The moment Alton pushed open the door, Helena had already floated out of the window. No, I just had a nightmare. Maureen hurriedly evaded. I thought something happened, but it turned out to be a nightmare. Alton sat down beside Maureen's bed and touched Maureen's head. What did you dream about? I was caught by an evil old witch, and she wanted to eat me. I was scared. Maureen said casually. I didn't know you would be afraid of this. Alton laughed. No matter how he thought about it, he felt that his grandson was not someone who would be afraid of an evil old witch. Then again, he didn't remember that Maureen was afraid of anything. When he followed him out, he would be curious and greet dangerous black magic creatures, but he was afraid of nightmares. Alton said, then how about I move my bed over to you at night and sleep here to give you courage? No need, Grandpa, I'm grown up. Maureen shook her head. It was just a dream, Grandpa, you should go back to sleep. Really? Alton asked. No need. Maureen nodded. Okay, then remember to cover yourself with a quilt. Alton stood up and left the bedroom, closing the door. Maureen quickly got out of bed, ran to the window, and stuck his head out to look for Helena. The latest novels are first published on 6th book bar. Behind you. Helena had come through the wall without knowing when. You should have said hello. Maureen muttered. He had never met Helena before, and they had never even spoken to each other. He had only seen her occasionally at school. Apart from the message Myrtle brought him last time, the two of them basically didn't know each other. But such a female ghost, standing by Maureen's bed in the middle of the night, this feeling, a bit weird. Maureen couldn't help but hold his pajamas tightly. I wanted to wake you up, Helena said faintly, but you woke up by yourself. Maureen asked in confusion, why did you come to me? And where have you been these days? Helena turned her head faintly, looked at Maureen, and then said, go to school, now. Hurry up, I have something important to ask you for help. What is it? Maureen felt a little strange. Why did he go to school in the middle of the night without sleeping? This matter is very important. It is related to the stone arch outside. We need to stop PNG's plan, Helena said softly. PNG? Maureen suddenly perked up. Do the principal and others know? Maureen asked. I have just informed the principal. She and Professor Francis are rushing to the school, but only you can stop the stone arch. You are an invisible man and must be there. After Helena finished speaking, she floated out of Maureen's room without waiting for Maureen to ask. Wait, at least explain the matter clearly. Why is it? Maureen shouted. The two arches are connected. Payangat is going to use the stolen arch to summon the Arch of Hogwarts in another place. If you are in school, you can prevent the arch from being stolen. I have to keep an eye on Payangat now. When you go to school, the principal will tell you the plan. Also, don't tell your family. The matter of the arch must be kept secret. Helena's figure has disappeared in the night. Maureen stared blankly at the moonlight outside the window. What is going on? In the middle of the night, a female ghost who has been missing for a long time suddenly came to call him back to school? Maureen still has a lot of questions in his mind. Why did it happen so suddenly? Chapter 464 Returning to School at Night. Maureen looked at the time. It was already 1 in the morning. Did he really have to go to school in the middle of the night? But thinking of this guy, Payangat, Maureen felt that he couldn't ignore it. Helena's serious expression didn't look like she was joking. Besides, Helena was the daughter of Ravenclaw. She knew what the black cube and the stone arch meant. If this matter was not extremely urgent, Helena would not come to him in the middle of the night. In any case, he had to go to school to meet with Principal McGonagall and figure out the matter first. If there was really any connection between the two stone arches and him, he had to go. Maureen heard Alton's slight snoring from the bedroom next door. He was sure that his grandfather was asleep. He didn't dare to go through the door, worried that he would wake Alton up if he walked through the living room, so he climbed to the window. Doy, come quickly. Maureen whispered. Doy. Doy. Doy jumped from the bed to Maureen's shoulders. Maureen jumped downstairs. Bang! With a slight sound, Maureen disappeared in the air. There are many ways to get to school. If Principal McGonagall was there, he should have paraded to the woods and then ran towards the gate. But to be on the safe side, he decided to go from Arnok's house. This was mainly to confirm whether Arnok still had the black cube. Maureen paraded directly to Arnok's living room, opened the door of the painting on the wall, ran into the painting, and ran into Arnok's room in the living room of the painting. Arnok was sleeping soundly on the bed in cow pajamas. Don't sleep, wake up. Maureen shook Arnok in the painting. But Arnok was sleeping soundly, mumbling, and ignored Maureen. Maureen found that Arnok had a sleep bubble on his nose, which was bulging. He remembered what Circulate said last time, that people in the painting would have a bubble on their noses when they sleep. If the person in the painting was sleeping too deeply and could not be woken up, he had to poke this bubble. Maureen quickly reached out and poked Arnok's sleep bubble, popping it. Who is it? Arnok turned on the bedside lamp in a daze, and when he saw that it was Maureen, he glared at Maureen unhappily. Why are you here in the middle of the night? I'm going to school. Is your black cube safe? Maureen asked. Of course it's safe. You didn't come to tell me this in the middle of the night. Arnok turned over and planned to continue sleeping. Then take me to school, quickly. Maureen pulled Arnok up again. It's vacation, why are you still going to school? Do you love studying so much? Arnok said angrily. I don't have time to explain to you, just think that I love studying. I have always loved studying. Maureen said impatiently. Okay. You unlucky child. Arnok flicked Maureen's head, muttered and climbed up, grabbed Maureen's arm, disappeared in the bedroom in an instant, and appeared in the room of every request. "What are you going to do?" Arnold asked with a yawn. "You're running to school in the middle of the night. I don't believe you love studying so much." The stone arch, the black magic cube. Anyway, it was Helena who asked me to find Principal Mag, saying it was about Piangid. "Be careful, Arnold." Maureen had already jumped into the picture of the ladder to heaven and ran out of the picture, then said, "Don't let Piangid find you." As long as Arnold protected the last black magic cube, the stone arch would not be opened by Piangid. The Arnold in the picture was very powerful, and Maureen trusted this. "Wait, what Piangid? Explain yourself clearly," Arnold shouted in the picture. "I'll go find the principal first, and I'll talk to you after I'm done." Maureen quickly opened the door of the studio, ran out, and came to the corridor on the 7th floor. There was silence. The corridor was too quiet. The dim lights were swaying gently. The moonlight was cast into the window, stretching the shadows of the pillars long and crooked, like a monster baring its fangs and claws, looking very gloomy. It was summer vacation now, and there was no student in the school. Generally, students would not choose to stay in school during the summer vacation. Most of the professors had left the school and went home. At this time, no one would respond to Maureen even if he shouted. Maureen walked in the empty castle. He felt that this experience was magical. The last time he wandered around the castle at night was last year. At that time, he was chased around by Hoyle and a fire dragon in the painting. Apart from that time, he rarely got up at night. There were some magic torches burning on the pillars in the corridor. Even during the holidays, they were still working tirelessly. This touched Maureen. At least he didn't have to grope in the dark. He ran quickly to the principal's office on the 3rd floor. The stairs in the castle were still turning. He calculated in his mind that if he stood on the 5th floor, it would take another 5 minutes for the stairs to turn around. Standing in the empty corridor, Maureen still felt a little nervous. It was the middle of the night. How come there was not even a ghost? At least there would be a ghost to keep him company, so he wouldn't be too lonely. Is anyone there? Professor Francis. Principal McGonagall. The latest novels are first published on 6th 9-book bar. Maureen tried to shout. It would be best if they could respond. But only the paintings on the wall responded. "Why are you shouting in the middle of the night? Can't you let me sleep quietly? I've been suffering from insomnia for 5 days. Who is so annoying? Believe it or not, I'll let my husky out to bite you." The people in the paintings were mumbling in a daze, and they didn't wake up. After making dissatisfied noises after Maureen's quarrel, they continued to sleep. Maureen shut his mouth wisely. When the staircase turned, he quickly ran to the 3rd floor, turned a corner from the corridor, and ran to the principal's office. "Be strict with yourself," Maureen shouted to the stone monster, and the stone monster turned around and asked him to go to the principal's office. But the principal's office was empty. "Principal Mag," Maureen shouted. "Why are you here again?" The voice of Binus came from the ceiling. He was sitting on a chair, holding his chin with his hand to comb his beard. It can be seen that he cherishes his beard very much. "The principal is not here. What are you doing here so late at night? Isn't the principal here?" Maureen recognized Binus, the former principal who often shouted that he would lock him up in the cellar and put rotten eggs in it. The other principals were all dozing off. "Of course he's not here. It's vacation now. Are you here to put him in detention?" Binus said unhappily. "No, if it's not here, then good night." Maureen turned and left the principal's office. If he was right, Principal McGonagall and Professor Francis must be at the stone archway at the entrance of the castle. He should go there to find them directly. He ran to the 1st floor, struggled to open the castle gate a crack, got out, and came to the outside of the castle. It was pitch black outside the castle. Even Hagrid's hut in the distance had no lights. The air was too quiet. Only the chirping of insects could be heard. The willow trees growing on the hillside swayed in the wind, like a group of miserable ghosts. "I really don't like coming to school at this time," Maureen muttered. With the help of the bright moonlight, Maureen really saw several figures in the stone archway not far away, and he hurriedly ran there. But he suddenly remembered something and stopped after running a few steps. Chapter 465 Silent Hogwarts. This feeling was very strange, and it was hard to tell what was wrong, but Maureen still stopped vigilantly. The familiar school suddenly became a little gloomy, even a little strange. Even if it was during the holidays, it shouldn't be like this. There couldn't be no one in the school, right? Did something go wrong? Maureen took a close look at the stone arch in the distance. There were indeed a few people standing near the stone arch. Because it was too dark at night, he couldn't confirm the identities of these people. After counting carefully, there were 4 people standing next to the stone arch. 2 of them were shorter, and one looked very familiar, as if, how could this be? Maureen thought he had seen it wrong. Maureen quickly recognized it, and he was surprised. It was Anran. He was too familiar with Anran's appearance. He was with Anran almost every day, and he knew Anran's every move. If it was because of the black cube, Anran was the descendant of the 12 families. It was understandable that Principal McGonagall and Professor Francis brought Anran here, but why did Maureen still feel very strange? He walked forward cautiously. The closer he got to the stone arch, the more uneasy he felt. The stone arch seemed to be very wrong. It seemed to be emitting a strange gray light, and the magic fluctuations were looming. Is the stone arch really going to be summoned by Pianged? Maureen quickened his pace, but stopped after a few steps because he saw that the figures did not look like Principal McGonagall and Professor Francis. Just as Maureen hesitated, a gloomy voice sounded behind him. Since you are here, why don't you go over? This voice made Maureen shudder. He was very familiar with this voice because he had met this guy face to face several times. It was the old witch. Maureen turned around quickly, pulled out his wand, and looked at the person in front of him cautiously. Is it you? Maureen said in surprise. You dare to come to Hogwarts? He never expected that the old witch would appear in Hogwarts. His uneasiness was indeed confirmed. Why don't I dare to come here? The old witch showed a toothless and grim smile, leaning on a cane with a hunched body, which looked very strange in the dark night. Changed in an instant. Maureen waved his wand without hesitation and turned the stone beside the old witch into a mirror. He already knew the old witch's weakness. This guy was most afraid of seeing his ugly face in the mirror. It would be much easier to deal with him as long as he could turn into a mirror. But just as Maureen raised his wand, a spell behind him hit his wrist. His hand hurt, and the wand flew out and fell into the dark grass and disappeared. Boy, why do you need to use a wand on such a nice night? Lucas laughed from behind. Maureen's hand was burning with pain. He felt his hand swell up immediately, as if it was burned by a ball of fire, and as if countless bees were stinging him. Damn it! Maureen covered his hand. He tried desperately to suppress the effect of the stinging curse, but it was useless. Lucas' stinging curse was too strong. His right palm was numb, and he didn't know where the wand fell. I need your help with something. I think it's better for you to cooperate. The old witch shook her wand sinisterly and threatened, it's wise to suffer less. Maureen retreated cautiously. His throat was a little dry. Even with a wand, he couldn't be the opponent of the old witch and Lucas, not to mention that he was now unarmed. The old witch walked forward slowly step by step. Maureen could only retreat step by step, all the way to the stone arch, and then slowly walked up the stone arch. Maureen, why are you also caught? Anran said uneasily, standing next to the stone arch. Anran, are you okay? Maureen asked. Then he found that Professor Adams was also there. Professor, why are you two here? Maureen said in surprise. I don't know. I was lying on the bed 1 second ago, and someone caught me the next second. Are you okay? Professor Adams looked very nervous. He protected Anran behind him. Although it was useless to do so, he was equivalent to a squib. Even if he was given a wand, he couldn't cast magic. But he felt that he was a teacher and had the responsibility to protect his students. Maureen stood beside Professor Adams and looked around. Helena clearly told him that Principal McGonagall and Professor Francis were here, but why were there only Lucas and the old witch? Maureen, are you hurt? Anran whispered softly. She hurriedly held Maureen's hand. A cool breath passed from Anran's hand to Maureen's hand, and the burning feeling in Maureen's palm subsided a lot. Fortunately, Anran was a natural healing magus who could heal other people's injuries without a wand. She studied with Madame Pomfrey for several months and understood how to treat this stinging curse. Anran, did you see Principal McGonagall and Professor Francis? Maureen asked in a low voice. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. No, I didn't see them. Anran held Maureen's hand tightly. She was also very nervous, but hiding behind Maureen, she pretended to be calm. No matter what, it was safer to have Maureen and Professor Adams there. Then how did you get here? Maureen asked. It was that fierce man who broke into my bedroom. He brought me here before I could even shout. Unran pointed at Lucas and asked after a moment, "What about you? Did they go to catch you too?" "He didn't come to catch me. I got the news." Maureen suddenly stopped talking here. His heart sank because he saw a ghost floating over from a distance and standing not far from Lucas. "Helena. Thank you for your hard work, Ms. Gray." Lucas smiled at Helena. Helena floated silently in the air. The moonlight shone on her, making her look very strange. The expression on her face seemed to be sad, and also like she was sighing. "What are you doing?" Maureen looked at Helena in surprise. He had just come here because of the news from Helena. Helena said that Payengard was going to summon the stone archway of Hogwarts with another stolen stone archway, and asked Maureen to come to the school to stop it. Helena also said that Principal McGonagall and Professor Francis were both there, because Helena was the daughter of Ravenclaw, and she had warned Maureen not to go to the Forbidden Forest last time. Maureen knew very well that Helena knew more about the Black Cube and the stone archway than he did, so he did not doubt it at the time and directly believed what Helena said. Maureen only realized it now. "Did you trick me to come here? Are you in cahoots with them?" If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 466, The Ghost Who Turned Against Us. "It's not easy to get you to come to school alone at night," Lucas said jokingly. "We have to ask Ms. Gray for help." Maureen suddenly understood that his house had special protection. If ordinary wizards broke into his house, they would be attacked by spells, and Alton would definitely wake up at that time. It would not be easy to take Maureen from Grandpa Maureen. Lucas and the old witch did not want to alarm the people in the Ministry of Magic. Even if it was retired Alton, they did not want to provoke him for no reason. It would not be good for them. However, the spells used by wizards to protect themselves in their homes are ineffective against ghosts, because ghosts will not leave traces anywhere, and will not trigger the spells in Maureen's house, so Helena can break into Maureen's bedroom quietly. "I don't understand. You shouldn't be. You know the function of this stone arch better than any of us. Why would you help them?" Maureen questioned Helena loudly. Helena looked at Maureen dimly, then turned her gaze to the stone archway. "We just each get what we need." "We each get what we need?" "At the beginning of last year, it was you who asked Myrtle to tell me that I couldn't go to the Forbidden Forest. Why did you help me?" Maureen continued to ask. "You said you were going to find the answer to the Invisible Man, and your mother Ravenclaw also helped guard the Black Cube. How could you? It's because of my mother that I want to do this." Helena said calmly, "I'm sorry, I didn't want to involve you." "What do you mean?" There was a trace of confusion in Helena's blurred eyes, as if she was recalling something, and her expression was wavering, but soon there was only determination in her eyes. "I need to open the stone archway," Helena said word by word. "What are you talking about? Your mother was trying to protect the Black Cube. She and others were protecting the Black Cube and the stone archway, right?" Maureen was a little angry. The stone archway was originally closed by Ravenclaw, Gryffindor, Slytherin, and Hufflepuff, and the 12 keys of the stone archway were kept separately, not wanting future generations to open it. But now the daughter of Ravenclaw wants to open the stone archway that her mother sealed with her own hands? "You won't understand," Helena said faintly. Her tone was very flat, as if she was disdainful of talking to a 10-year-old child. "Then let me understand," Maureen said angrily. "You tricked me here to help them open the stone archway. Are you worthy of your mother?" Helena's face became worse and worse. She suddenly jumped in front of Maureen and shouted, "You are not qualified to talk about my mother, and you are not qualified to evaluate her. I'm talking about you." Although Helena's coldness made him very uncomfortable, Maureen still said unyieldingly, "You went against her wishes and helped Ping to open the stone archway. You don't even allow others to say it." Helena seemed to be hit by something painful by Maureen. Her face became extremely painful. She waved her sleeves and quickly retreated. She floated above the stone archway, and her chest kept rising and falling. "Hurry up and act." Helena stopped responding to Maureen's words. She turned her head and said to Lucas. Maureen stared at Helena angrily. "Although I don't know what will happen after opening the stone arch, I won't let you succeed." Maureen said, "No matter what your purpose is, I will definitely stop you." He turned his head to look at the stone arch. With the help of the moonlight, he saw that there were still only 10 patterns on the stone arch. The pattern that Professor Binns and Arnold protected did not appear. At least the key to open the stone arch has not been gathered yet. You can't stop it. A cold and high-pitched voice echoed around. This voice seemed to be everywhere. There seemed to be a sharp cold wind blowing around, which startled Maureen and the others. "Who is talking there?" and Ran asked in a low voice. They soon knew who it was. Lucas had already waved his wand, and a huge picture frame slowly appeared in front of Maureen. The picture was 2 meters high. There stood a middle-aged man with silver hair, deep eyebrows, sharp muscle lines on his face, and a look of hostility in his eyes. The driving force behind all the events, Piangid. Maureen held his breath. It was indeed this guy. Professor Adams and Inran also looked at the person standing in the frame in doubt. They didn't know Piang, but they were also shocked by his cold and sinister expression. It was obviously just a painting, but it felt to them as if Piang would step out of the painting next. This person was much clearer than the portraits in the castle. "It's you again," Maureen said in a deep voice. Piang was a painter, and the person in his painting was also lifelike. He shaped his art by killing Muggles and used the lives of Muggles to continue himself. His methods were extremely cruel. This was the second time Maureen faced Piang head-on. This person had been hiding behind the scenes, instructing Lucas and the old witch to collect black cubes everywhere, and using various conspiracies and tricks to fool the people in the Ministry of Magic. The most amazing thing is that the people in the Ministry of Magic still don't know that there is a century-old wizard in the painting. Long time no see, Walker. How do you want to stop me on such a wonderful night? Piang laughed, and that laugh made everyone shudder involuntarily. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Unfortunately, you only got 10 black cubes. It takes 12 cubes to open the stone archway. Obviously you haven't got the other 2 black cubes yet. Although Maureen didn't even have a wand in his hand now, and didn't know where Principal McGonagall and Professor Francis had gone, he still calmed down, because no matter what, as long as the remaining 2 black cubes were safe, Piang couldn't open the stone archway. "Do you think so, Walker?" Piang fiddled with his wand in his hand and looked at Maureen with interest. "Isn't it?" Maureen said. What made Maureen feel incredible was that although Piang was in the painting, the scenery behind him was transparent. The scenery behind him was actually the night scene of Hogwarts School, and Maureen could see Lucas through the painting. Generally speaking, paintings have backgrounds. Even portraits should be standing somewhere, such as a canyon, a room, or sitting on a chair. But in Piang's painting, the background behind him was the real background. If it weren't for the brown frame around Piang's body, Maureen would even think that Piang was standing on the stone platform alive. Piang took a step forward slowly in the painting, and the frame also moved slowly with it. This feeling made Maureen feel very strange. He knew that Piang was imprisoned in the painting and couldn't get out, but when Piang walked forward, the background didn't move, as if Piang was not in the painting at all. It was just an empty frame, without a painting, and only a person was standing. Maureen could even imagine that if he cast a magic to hide the frame around Piang, then what he saw would be a real person, and no one would think that the Piang in front of him was actually the character in the painting. "Let me guess, you don't understand the relationship between the black cube and the stone arch, right?" Piang showed a strange smile at the corner of his mouth. "Do you think the black cube is just the key to the stone arch?" Maureen's heart skipped a beat. He remembered that the Hufflepuff in the Room of Requirement said that there were 12 keys to the stone arch, and the black cube was needed to open the stone arch. Maureen has been investigating this matter, but he certainly doesn't know more than Piang. After hearing what Piang said, he was a little uncertain. Chapter 467 The Dark Devil in the Painting. Maureen's understanding of this stone arch is far from enough, but as a descendant of one of the 12 families, Piang must know a lot of hidden secrets. Maureen Walker, a gifted invisible man. Yes, you are very special, but unfortunately, people nowadays don't understand what invisible people mean. Even the professors of Hogwarts don't know. I feel sad for these people. Piang has walked in front of Maureen. Although it was the painting that moved in front of Maureen, it felt to Maureen as if he walked in front of her. This person is so strange. Unran pulled Maureen's injured right hand in fear and hid behind Maureen. She had never seen the person in the painting move like this before, and she didn't know who Piang was, but hiding behind Maureen gave her a sense of security. "Who are you? What do you want?" Professor Adams was also afraid, but when he saw a person in a painting walking towards him, he bravely pulled Maureen in and ran behind him. "I tell you, Principal McGonagall and the others will be here soon. You still have time to leave now. They won't come, Adams, I can assure you of that. Helena has made sure of that. Pangade laughed. Helena? Did you lead the principal and the others away? Maureen looked up angrily at Helena, who was floating in the air. Helena did not look at Maureen, nor did she answer Maureen's words. Helena and I are just helping each other. Pangade, holding the magic wand in his hand, looked at Adams and continued, it's really interesting to have a wizard who can't do magic. But I won't discriminate against you, Adams, you are one of us. It's not your turn yet, don't be too anxious, just wait. Pangade stretched out the magic wand and waved it gently. Professor Adams felt as if he was pulled by someone and was directly pulled to the side of the stone arch. It seemed that someone had cast a confinement spell on him and he couldn't move. You can actually be in the painting. Maureen was surprised. He didn't expect that Pangade in the painting could actually cast magic on people outside the painting. But he clearly remembered that Pangade said last time that if he wanted to cast magic on the wizards outside the painting, it would consume a lot of his own energy. For his own safety, Pangade would not cast magic on people outside the painting unless he had no choice. Do you think I will perish if you let Charles destroy my paintings everywhere? Pangade laughed triumphantly. I have the help of these two people, and I have invited many Muggles into my paintings. You don't have to worry about this. Maureen was slightly stunned. Professor Charles has been collecting Pangade's paintings all over the world and destroying them in the past year, but Maureen only realized now that as long as Pangade has helpers, it is more than enough for him to continue to survive in the paintings. Last year, Professor Charles came to trouble me. Agrippa and Dumbledore are also in the paintings, but at night, there is only an empty castle left in Hogwarts. No one outside the castle will come to save you. It's time for the two of us to have a good talk. Pangade walked around Maureen and Anrin, looking at them with deep eyes, as if admiring the prey he caught. We have nothing to talk about. Maureen calmed himself down. You can't open the stone arch. Pangade walked up to Maureen again. He was very tall and looked down at Maureen. Tell me, Walker, what do you think I opened the stone arch for? Maureen took a step back, frowned, and did not answer. Let me think about it. You must think I want to lure that kind of monster over. Pangade laughed, and his laughter was very harsh in the empty school. I know you've been to that place, and it's really interesting, but that's not my purpose, Walker. Pangade said slowly, I'm not interested in leading a group of monsters who only know how to fight all day, at least not now. You're not for the monsters. Maureen was slightly surprised. You still don't understand the stone arch. I want to confirm your relationship with the black cube, but it doesn't matter anymore. I don't plan to explain too much to you on this matter. The last experience told me that there is no benefit in explaining too much to you. I know how to learn from my mistakes. Pangade had already walked to the side of the stone arch. He stretched out his slender pale fingers and gently stroked the stone arch. Although he was in the painting, it felt as if he was really touching the stone arch. This stone arch carries a strong history and responsibility. It is an insult to it to let it decay in a place like the Department of Mysteries in obscurity. The glory behind it is far beyond your imagination. Pangade touched the 10 patterns on the stone arch. The 10 patterns were deeply engraved on the doorposts, as if they had been baptized by wind and frost, and the traces of time were precipitated. Each pattern was telling its own story. I know that the other black cube is in your hand. Based on my understanding of you, you will give it to Agrippa. If I guess correctly, the black cube is somewhere in the painting. Pangade turned his head and looked at Maureen jokingly. He seemed to have expected everything. Maureen felt a little uneasy. Pangade was a man with deep scheming. It was reasonable for him to guess this, but he didn't say anything. He couldn't let the other party see anything. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. There is another black cube guarded by Binns Cuthbert. I know Cuthbert and Agrippa. It's useless to force them. Pangade sneered and looked at Maureen meaningfully. I can actually use the little girl behind you to threaten you to get the black cube. Maureen pulled Anrin tightly and protected her behind him. He felt that his injured hand had completely healed. Although Anrin didn't have a wand or any potions, her healing ability was indeed second to none. Pangade shook his head and said, but I don't intend to do that. I won't underestimate any opponent, and I won't think that I am the most powerful wizard. I am different from other stupid and arrogant so-called invincible dark magic lords. I respect any opponent who can pose a threat to me. Agrippa is undoubtedly one of them. If I ask you to go to the painting to get the black cube from him again, he will definitely make trouble. Painted smiled evilly at the corner of his mouth. But it doesn't matter, Walker, although they each took 2 black cubes, I can tell you that the stone archway does not have to be opened after all 12 black cubes are collected. Don't you need to collect all 12 black cubes? Maureen was stunned. Like I said, people today don't know why the ancestors of the 12 families closed the stone archway. They have become accustomed to living in a comfortable magical world, like frogs in a well. Painted waved his wand gently, and a gray light appeared at the tip of the wand. The gray light floated out, and then another old stone archway appeared from it and landed on the other side. This stone archway looked quite inconspicuous, similar to the stone archway next to Maureen. The only difference was that there was a tattered curtain hanging on the stone archway, swaying gently in the wind. Chapter 468, Bewitching People. The Lost Stone Archway of the Department of Mysteries. Maureen looked at the stone archway with rags hanging on it. The moment the stone archway appeared, his uneasiness became stronger. He had only seen this stone archway in Paingird's memory before, and he didn't know what the relationship was between this stone archway and the stone archway of Hogwarts, but he knew that Paingird must know. The curtain above the stone archway was swaying in the wind, and it seemed that someone was whispering behind it, making people want to lift it up to see what was going on. But Maureen resisted this impulse. Hufflepuff told him that once he walked into this stone archway, he couldn't turn back. So who should start first? Oh, by the way, I almost forgot that we have one of our own. Paingird leaned lazily on the picture frame, which was like a wall to him. He waved his wand again, and a figure fell out of the other side of the picture frame in a mess and fell on the stone platform. It was Sweet. Sweet, are you okay? Maureen shouted. Sweet had been missing for so long, and he was indeed captured by Paingird. Of course he's fine, how could I hurt my own people? Paingird said with a smug smile. Sweet got up from the ground, still holding the magic wand in his hand, looking at Paingird indifferently, and raised his hand to shoot a red magic spell at Paingird. But Sweet's magic spell went straight through Paingir's painting, and his magic had no effect on Paingird. What do you think about my suggestion? Sweet, you still haven't made up your mind after so many days. Paingird ignored Sweet's magic spell, and he said slowly, you can wait, but have you considered your father? Shut up, you framed him. Sweet growled. Whether I framed you or not, it doesn't matter. Paingird smiled and said, don't you understand? Now only I can help you. The people from the Ministry of Magic want to catch him. As long as Clive is caught by the Ministry of Magic, he will surely die. Once he dies, poor Nim will be like you, lonely and dependent on his Muggle mother. Paingird knew very well what Sweet's weakness was. He could always see through people's minds easily. Poor Nim, he lost his parents at the age of 7. His life will be worse than yours. Your mother at least knows magic, but his mother is just a Muggle, who has been monitored by the Ministry of Magic all her life. Tisk tisk. Shut up. Sweet roared. Go ahead and get angry at me. It's okay. Vent out your resentment. You have a lot of resentment in your heart. You always feel that life is unfair to you. The sister you recognized in the Muggle orphanage, that poor person, the people in the Ministry of Magic don't care about her at all. Don't you think the Ministry of Magic is a group of stupid and selfish villains? Every word of Paingird pierced Sweet's heart. Sweet gritted his teeth and held the wand with a pale hand. The people in the Ministry of Magic don't care about the life and death of poor people like you. They only have power, status and reputation in their eyes. It was like this before, it is like this now, and it will be like this in the future. Be mature, don't be so naive, and think that the magic world will become better under the leadership of these people. This is impossible. Sweet, people with magic have a stronger desire for power than Muggles. Those who are not helpful to them will be abandoned without hesitation. Sweet seemed to remember something and trembled all over. Sweet, don't listen to him. Do you think things will get better if he takes over the Ministry of Magic? Maureen shouted. Of course it will get better, Walker. Paingird glanced at Maureen and continued, the current Ministry of Magic has been rotten from the bottom. I just asked Lucas and Moira to disguise it a little. Those stupid Aurors didn't have to think about it. They tried their best to catch Clive. After catching Clive, they didn't give Clive a chance to appeal. They didn't even find out whether he was Lucas. They threw him into Azkaban directly. What hope do you think these incompetent Aurors who only care about their own reputation and future can bring to you? Sweet's chest was slightly panting. He tried his best to suppress his thoughts, but even he had to admit that the people in the Ministry of Magic were two assholes. They caught his father for no reason, put his father in prison regardless of everything, and used him as a scapegoat. Then they promoted him and rewarded him. They didn't even want to find out the formation. Sweet had always naively wanted to check the laws of the wizarding world and defend his father. Even if he didn't want to acknowledge this father, he didn't want his brother to be without his father like him. But the Ministry of Magic didn't give his father any chance to defend himself. He was convicted of a crime at random. Those so-called wizard laws were just empty words. The Ministry of Magic won't give your father a chance. Yes, as long as the Ministry of Magic is still there, they will hunt down your father. Your father can only hide like a mouse, but they will never understand how noble the bloodline of our 12 families is. We have magical abilities that they can never match. We have guarded the stone arches for generations and protected the peace of the wizarding world. But in the end, how did they treat us? The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Pangard said slowly, only when the Ministry of Magic is overthrown, your father can be free, and your poor Nim will grow up with his father again. Isn't this what you want to see? Sweet slowly put down his wand, and his face became paler and paler, so pale that there was no blood at all. Sweet, think about it carefully. Who caused all this? You said that your sister in the orphanage had her consciousness taken away by Lucas Magnet, and your father was also framed and imprisoned by him. This was all caused by him, Maureen shouted. You are right, Walker, the cause is me. But have you ever thought that if they were smarter, even if someone seriously checked the truth, they would find that things were not that simple at all? But no one checked, they just wanted to arrest people first. I am the cause, but they are the source of corruption. Pangard said. There are still many people in the Ministry of Magic who are responsible. Maureen said. For example, your grandfather, Alton Walker. Pangard leaned against the picture frame, turned his head to look at Maureen, and laughed. I forgot about old Walker. Yes, old Mr. Walker, a rare wizard. His magic is very powerful. His magic is so powerful that you can't imagine, but he never used it. I remember, Walker, you don't understand who he is at all, right? Chapter 469, My Own Path. Who is my grandfather? Maureen was stunned. It seems that old Walker didn't mention this to young Walker. Tisk, tisk, what a pity. Why do people like to hide their abilities? Pangard shook his head gently. My grandfather is just a retired official of the Ministry of Magic. Don't try to seduce me. Maureen said in a deep voice. Retired official? You think things are too simple, Walker? I thought so at first. But don't you think that since you are so special, he will only be an official of the Department for the Prohibition of the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts? In order to understand you, I went to investigate him. Although he hid it perfectly, I still dug out some secrets. I am very good at investigating things, you don't have to doubt it. Pangard shook his head regretfully. Such a simple person has to work for the Ministry of Magic, being ordered around by those stupid wizard officials, and even a small Lestrange family dares to insult him? I really don't understand. What do you mean? Maureen only knew that Alton always liked to do the work of solving troubles for Muggles, and he enjoyed it every day. Solving spells was his favorite thing. Those people in the Ministry of Magic would definitely come to his grandfather when they encountered something they couldn't solve. But Maureen always thought that it was just because Alton had rich magic experience and profound knowledge. Maybe in addition to Muggle knowledge, he could solve many spells that those people in the Ministry of Magic solved. 100 Lestranges combined are no match for old Walker. He has a little confidence in his family. Walker, your grandfather is very capable. Otherwise, why don't you think I let Lucas and Moira go directly to your house to arrest you? It's not a good thing to provoke him. Pying Aid slowly glanced at Lucas and Moira. Lucas lowered his head quickly, but Moira just looked at Pying Aid coldly. She didn't seem to be afraid of Pying Aid. What? Maureen was a little surprised. He didn't expect Pying Aid to have such a high opinion of Alton, but he felt that Pying Aid was lying, because he remembered clearly that when Lucas was arrested, his grandfather did not get any benefits from Lucas's lock magnet. Although he knew that his grandfather was very powerful, it was definitely not to the extent that Pying Aid said. Don't doubt my words, Walker, he is hiding very deeply. I think he is so restrained just to protect you. Nothing is more important to him than you. As long as it has nothing to do with you, he will not take it to heart. Paying Aid said, this may be his character. Of course, it's okay to be confused sometimes, but we can't awaken the real him. He is a very difficult person. So I can only let Helena lure you out and don't let him notice. Believe me, without him, you will be worse off than Sweet. Maureen clenched his fists. You don't need to say such false words to shake me. I don't believe it so easily. I don't need you to believe it, Walker. Paying Aid shook his head. What kind of person he is not the issue we want to discuss tonight. Our focus tonight is not here. So Sweet, have you thought about it? For your father, your brother, and your sister in the Muggle orphanage, how about it? Paying Aid stared at Sweet. Sweet had put down his wand. He was silent for a long time before asking, what should I do? Sweet. Maureen shouted. I'm different from you, Maureen. I'm not from the Ministry of Magic. I won't work for people from the Ministry of Magic. Sweet looked up at Maureen, his lips trembling slightly. Ever since the Auror treated him like that, I've been completely disappointed with the people in the Ministry of Magic. All I want is that Nim is not the same as me. That's not the reason why you work for Payingid. Maureen said angrily. What if it was you? Maureen, if the Ministry of Magic treated your grandfather like this, would you still be able to consistently believe in the Ministry of Magic? Sweet said word by word. Maureen pursed his lips. I can tell you that I have never liked those people in the Ministry of Magic, and I have never considered working in the Ministry of Magic in the future. Maureen said. This is the truth. He didn't like the tedious paperwork in the Ministry of Magic since he was a child. He always felt bored when he saw Alton writing reports. Maureen continued, but I also have my own principles, and I will not compromise with such a person. Even if you don't trust the Ministry of Magic, you shouldn't rely on such a person to change it. He is just using you. Do you think he is more trustworthy than the Ministry of Magic? I only trust my intuition. Sweet stared at Maureen and said, I have my own way to go and don't want to be influenced by anyone. Maureen frowned deeply. He looked at Sweet without avoiding and said nothing. That's right, Sweet, trust your intuition. Pying smiled proudly. What should I do? Sweet asked indifferently. No hurry, we are all gentlemen, and we should give priority to ladies. How about starting with Miss Briar? Pying set his eyes on and ran behind Maureen and stretched out his hand to make a please gesture. And Ran shrank behind Maureen and said timidly, I don't know you. The latest novels are first published on Liuji 9 Shuba. It's okay, my name is Pei Yingade, don't we know each other? Pei Yingade slowly walked towards and ran. Maureen protected and ran behind him and said coldly, don't even think about touching her. It's not up to you, Walker. Pei Yingade waved his wand, and Maureen felt an invisible hand grabbing him into the air. He struggled desperately, but it was useless. Without a wand, the magic he could cast was very limited, and he could never be a match for Pei Yingade. Put him down quickly, don't hurt him. And Rand said anxiously. It's easy to put him down. Pying said with a smile, you just need to help me repair the stone archway, and I'll let him down, how about that? Repair? Repair the stone archway? But I am not a stonemason. Anran twisted her fingers and whispered. After all, she was just a 12-year-old girl who had just attended Hogwarts for a year. She was ignorant of many things in the wizarding world and didn't know what kind of person she was facing. People from our 12 families all have special abilities. If you don't have anyone to teach you, it's normal that you don't know how to awaken your abilities. Pying said, it doesn't matter. You need to understand what your abilities are. For you, your abilities are not as simple as healing people. This book didn't have many subscriptions, but there were still many readers who read pirated copies. Not only that, those who read pirated copies also came to my book review area to make comments. Period. I have a relatively good temper. I don't like to curse people, and I don't want to curse. I don't care what the genuine readers say in my book review area. You paid to read my novel. I can't let you not even have the right to speak, but it's really too much for you to read the pirated version and still say it in front of me. Period. I wrote here completely out of love, but love can also run dry. There are less than 200 average subscriptions, and you go to read the pirated version, and then come to say this and that, which affects my mood for writing. Because of the low subscription, this book may soon be finished. If the average subscription is 200, I can continue to write. If you really like it, I hope you can support the genuine version. Chapter 470, Briar's Repairability. Isn't it used to heal people? Unran didn't quite understand. Take what belongs to you in your hands, and you will know what your ability is. Pei Ying waved his wand, and a black magic cube flew out of the picture frame behind him and landed in front of Enran. Enran, don't touch it! Maureen shouted. He knew what would happen if he touched the black magic cube. After Sweet touched the black magic cube, his eyes would begin to emit a strange light, which was particularly dazzling under the sunlight and would cause great trouble to his life. Walker, this is not something you can interfere with. She is from the Brill family and she needs to know what her ability is. Pei Ying sneered. Enran glanced at Maureen and saw that Maureen was hanging in the air. After hesitating for a moment, she still reached out to catch the black magic cube. The moment her hand touched the black magic cube, a golden light suddenly emanated from her hand, and then she opened her eyes wide in surprise, feeling that something in her body seemed to have a strange resonance with the magic fluctuations on the black magic cube. Before Enran could react, her eyes had already lit up with golden light. Although the light was very faint, it was quite obvious in the dark night. Very good, very powerful healing ability. Not only can it heal the wounds left by the spell, but also can heal any damaged things. Why don't you try it? Briar, you will like your ability. Pei Ying waved his wand, and the stone arch with tattered curtains at the other end had moved over. Enran looked at the stone arch in confusion. She didn't notice anything special about her eyes, but when the stone arch moved over, she was suddenly surprised and said, I heard someone talking behind the stone arch. She took 2 steps forward cautiously, preparing to approach the stone arch. Enran, be careful, don't walk through that stone arch. Maureen shouted, that's a stone arch that you can't turn back from. What do you mean by no turning back? Enran stopped and looked at the tattered stone arch curiously. You will die. Maureen shouted. Enran quickly took a step back. Don't worry, there are not many descendants of the 12 families. This bloodline is so precious, how can I bear to waste them? Pei Ying slowly approached the stone archway, stretched out his hand to touch the stone archway, as if looking at a rare treasure, and said, Come here, Miss Briar, I think you will cooperate if you don't want Walker to suffer. Enran, don't talk. Pei Ying snapped his fingers, and Maureen immediately couldn't make a sound. Enran had no choice but to move forward. The curtain of the stone archway fluttered gently, as if someone behind it was slowly moving it with his hand, making Enran couldn't help but want to lift the curtain to see what was going on. Enran walked up the stone steps carefully and stood in front of the stone archway. She felt that the sound behind the curtain was getting louder and louder, but it was blocked by the curtain and couldn't be heard clearly. It may hurt a little, but it's okay. I think you will sacrifice for Walker. Pei Ying waved his magic wand, and an invisible light flashed across Enran's hand. Enran cried out in pain, and her palm soon cracked, and blood began to flow out. But Enran's own healing ability is very strong, and the newly cracked wound has begun to heal. Control your healing ability, if you don't want me to cut your palm again. Pei Ying reminded. Enran gritted her teeth, and the wound on her hand did not heal again. Very good, press your palm on the stone arch. Pei Ying continued. Enran pressed her bleeding palm on the stone arch, and the old stone arch suddenly appeared with strange veins all over the body. These veins were originally hidden in the rough stone, and now all emitted golden light, and Enran's blood quickly conducted along the veins of the stone arch. Enran's face turned pale all of a sudden. Stop! Maureen shouted angrily. He was very worried about Enran. He broke the silencing spell of Pei Ying in an instant. He struggled hard, with endless anger burning in his chest. He wanted to go down and pull Enran away from the stone arch. It's almost there. Don't worry. Pei Ying's eyes became extremely fanatical and anxious. The old stone arch seemed to have begun to change. It did not become brand new. On the contrary, it became more and more old, but the tattered curtain in the center became more and more complete. Da. 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 A gust of wind came from somewhere, and the curtain of the stone arch fluttered more and more vigorously. The latest novel is published on the 6th book bar. Enran's forehead was covered with beads of sweat. The stone arch was shaking slightly. She quickly retracted her hand. At this time, the 2 stone arches suddenly flew together and began to overlap. The black curtain floated back and forth between the 2 stone arches. When it floated back, it became illusory, as if it was about to disappear. When it floated forward, it became extremely solid and heavy. It was like it was constantly changing between reality and illusion. Yes, it worked. This is indeed the simplest way to repair it, Helena. You are right. The healing ability of the Brill family is very strong. Piang nodded approvingly to Helena. Maureen glared at Helena. But Anarin looked very bad. She seemed to have no strength left and could hardly stand. Sweet walked over and supported her. Piang waved his hand again, and another 9 black magic cubes floated out of his frame. A total of 10 black magic cubes floated slowly in the air. Helena, it's your turn. Piang moved one of the 10 black magic cubes in front of Helena. Helena silently took the Ravenclaw's black cube and pressed it against the stone archway. The groove on the stone archway swallowed a black cube in her hand. Now you 3 know what to do, right? Piang glanced at Sweet, Adams and ran. Sweet glanced at Maureen, then silently stretched out his hand and held the Clive family's black cube. The restraints on Professor Adams were also released. He hesitated for a moment, and took the black cube involuntarily. When he took the black cube, a blue light shone on his body, and then his eyes also emitted a faint blue light. This is the right way. How can our abilities be hidden? You will thank me for helping you awaken your abilities, Adams. Piang looked at the blue light in Professor Adams' eyes with satisfaction, then turned around and looked at Maureen, smiling triumphantly. Walker, you can't stop it. Before he finished speaking, a red spell suddenly cut through the night sky. Chapter 471, Escape Plan. This red spell came very suddenly. Piang focused on Maureen and ignored the surroundings. This spell came from Sweet. No one noticed that Sweet's palm holding the black cube was already bloody. When Piang didn't notice him, he had already waved his wand, and a blood curse swept out and rushed towards Maureen in the air. The power of this blood curse was very fast, and even Piang couldn't intercept it at the first time. The blood curse hit Maureen's binding spell and broke Maureen's binding spell in an instant. Next, Sweet had already thrown the black cube in his hand towards Maureen. Maureen got rid of the binding spell and fell from the air. At the moment Sweet threw the black cube over, he had already jumped up, and with his agile skills in playing Quidditch, he grabbed the black cube thrown by Sweet in his hand. While catching the black cube, Maureen took out a kerosene lamp that the centaur gave him from his pocket and threw it to the ground. When the fire went out, Maureen had disappeared on the stone platform. Piang and others had never expected such a change. Where did he go? Lucas shouted. Did he apparate? You can't apparate in Hogwarts. The old witch's face changed. Piang turned her head to Sweet. You should have lied to me, Sweet. Piang watched Maureen disappear in front of him. He waved his wand angrily, broke Sweet's blood curse, and then grabbed Sweet in the air. You are being self-indulgent. Sweet looked at Piang coldly. Is this the choice you made? Sweet, you would rather help Walker and don't care about your father's life or death. Piang asked coldly. I believe in my intuition. Sweet snorted coldly. My intuition tells me that you are not trustworthy. You will understand how stupid your behavior is. Piang was furious. He actually let Maureen escape again, and even he ignored the way Maureen escaped, the invisible man who could rely on the black cube to go to the abyss at night. Bang. Maureen fell into a pile of grass. He quickly got up and saw a big rock not far away. He quickly hid behind the big rock and kept panting. Fortunately, those monsters didn't find me. Maureen looked up at the monsters flying in the sky from time to time. These monsters were fighting. The place where Maureen fell was relatively hidden and did not attract the attention of any monster. Sweet, this guy, is really Maureen thought about countermeasures quickly in his mind. When Sweet said that he didn't want to be influenced by others, Maureen actually understood what he was talking about. When he and Sweet were training in Quidditch, they would often know each other's next move with just one glance. This was the tacit understanding they had developed through their training. Just like the wonderful cooperation between James and Albus, there was also a special cooperation between Maureen and Sweet. So when Sweet said that he only believed in his intuition, Maureen had already understood Sweet's plan. Sweet's words were just to wait for an opportunity to get the black cube. He knew the centaur fire in Maureen's pocket, and he also knew that when the fire went out and Maureen happened to be near the black cube, he would inexplicably go to another place. This was Maureen's only chance to leave Hogwarts, because among all of them, only Maureen had a way to leave this place. Just now, when Piang took out 10 black cubes, Maureen felt a strong sense of uneasiness in his heart. Even if he had the centaur fire in his pocket, it seemed that it could not cover up the sense of crisis brought by the 10 black cubes. I must find a way to spread the news now, at least inform other people. Maureen took a deep breath, and he thought of Arnok first. Now that he was here, if he wanted to find Arnok, He had to rely on the back garden of Old Darrow. Last time he fell in the cemetery, he fell in the back garden of Old Darrow. He desperately thought about Old Darrow's house and wanted to apparate to Old Darrow's back garden, but soon he found that he couldn't apparate in this place. If I can't apparate, what should I do now? Maureen poked his head out from behind the stone and checked the terrain with the help of the light of the 2 moons. He found that he was in a plain, with only 1 or 2 half-dead trees not far away, and 3 ferocious monsters fighting more than 100 meters away from him. He couldn't go looking for the house aimlessly in the middle of the night. This place is so big, who knows where the house is? Maureen carefully recalled every time he came here and went back. He remembered that if he honestly closed his eyes and went back, he would usually appear again near the place where he disappeared. In other words, if he went back directly now, he would also appear at the stone arch. In this way, he still had no advantage, not to mention that he didn't even have a wand in his hand at the moment. Arnok said that Maureen couldn't stay here for more than half an hour, so he had to hurry. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Maureen's mind was quickly thinking about the specific response methods. Anrin and Sweet were still in Pying Aid's hands. He couldn't ignore them, especially Sweet. He just helped Maureen, and Pying Aid would definitely not let him go easily. I need to get my wand back first. Maureen grabbed Doi and said seriously, Doi, after we go back, remember to go directly to find my wand. You know where the wand is, right? Doi, great. Doi shook her tail and nodded proudly. I need to plan first. Maureen looked at the monsters fighting around him. He couldn't go too far under the eyes of these monsters. It was no joke to alarm these monsters. He looked at the place where he just appeared. If he went back from that place, he would return to the stone platform. So he should stay away from this point as far as possible. Will he be far away from the stone platform when he goes back? It would be best to appear in the castle, so that he can find a way to get help from the castle without alarming Pei Ying. But before that, Maureen looked at the black magic cube in his hand. If he took the black magic cube back now, it might not be safe. He originally thought that the Abyss Zone existed in the black magic cube. Now it seems that his guess was wrong, otherwise the black magic cube could not have been brought here. He thought about it, and then he dug a pit under the stone on the ground and buried the black cube in it. Putting the black cube in the abyss, so that Ping could not get the black cube of the Clive family, was the best solution he could think of. Maureen found that several monsters were flying over from a distance. This place was like a battlefield of monsters. Countless monsters were torn into pieces and then gathered again. He took advantage of the monster on the left not paying attention and ran quickly towards a tree not far away, but before he ran far, Doi had already pulled his ears and screamed. At some point in the air, a sturdy monster like a bucket roared and swooped down at him. Chapter 472 Doi Uxiu Uxiu. Doi, awesome! Doi shouted. Don't go, Doi, there's no time to be awesome now. Maureen didn't let Doi jump out. If Doi turned into a ferocious beast and fought with a monster, it would definitely attract more monsters, and the situation would be even worse. Maureen immediately closed his eyes. He had to get back to school first. Soon the monster's low roar gradually disappeared, as if he was suddenly pulled from the noisy city to the quiet suburbs, and the monster's roar quickly left him. When he opened his eyes, he found that he was very unlucky. He actually landed not far from the hillside below the stone arch, which was a long distance away from the castle. When he just appeared, Doi had already jumped out and disappeared in the grass in the dark. Maureen lay in the grass, not daring to move casually, because he heard the 2 people on the stone platform talking. Pying Aid, we have an agreement. Now he ran away, it's your fault. The old witch said hoarsely in a dry and low voice. She was different from Lucas. Lucas didn't dare to disobey Pying Aid's words, but she was not afraid of Pying Aid. Don't worry, you will get what you want after Walker comes back. Pying Aid paced slowly on the stone platform. Come back? Will he come back at this time? The old witch stretched out her cane and tapped the ground lightly, making a slight sound. Will he be so stupid? He will come back. Pying Aid stood on the stone platform and looked at the whole school from a distance. Maureen quickly retracted his body. Are you so sure? The old witch continued to ask. Pying Aid sneered. He won't stay in that place for more than half an hour. No matter where he runs, he will come back here. Don't worry, I can still wait for half an hour. Pying Aid seemed to know everything about Maureen. He knew the specialness of the invisible man, and he knew that even if Maureen used the black magic cube to escape from this place, he would still come back here in half an hour. This guy is really difficult. Maureen muttered. How many secrets did Pyongyang know while hiding in the painting? Even he himself didn't quite understand these things. Why did Pyongyang know more about them than him? But no matter what, Pyongyang certainly wouldn't have expected that he would come back so soon. Maureen moved towards the castle cautiously. If he ran from the school gate, he was not sure that he could break through the magic of the school gate. The school gate was not so easy for students to enter and exit, so he could only go out from the castle. At this time, Pyongyang continued, "You two, go and search around. I have a hunch that Walker may have returned and blocked the entrance to the castle." "Yes." Lucas responded respectfully, jumped off the stone platform, and a magic rushed to the castle gate. The gray light was like a curtain of water, covering the entrance of the castle. Damn, this guy has a keen sense of smell. Maureen looked at the curtain of water at the entrance of the castle. Pyongyang seemed to be able to predict every step Maureen would take, not giving Maureen any chance. He leaned against a bush. Now he was unarmed and had no other choice. He could only wait for Doi to get the wand back before making any plans. But the old witch took out a small cage on the stone platform. She touched the cage with her magic wand, and the cage suddenly became larger. Countless dark shadows jumped out of it. These black shadows hovered over Hogwarts and flew everywhere. Before Maureen could react, one of the black shadows had already passed over his head, and then the black shadow let out a shrill scream. "He is back indeed." The old witch laughed sinisterly. Swish! Countless black shadows swooped down towards Maureen. What the hell is this? Maureen didn't expect that the ghosts brought by the old witch were so powerful that they found his trace at once. He didn't care about anything and quickly jumped down. At this time, his heart suddenly paused, and he felt as if he was connected to something. "Doi, great!" Maureen seemed to hear Doi muttering in the distance. It had found Maureen's wand, and its little paw was holding Maureen's wand and running towards this side. But Maureen had a very strange idea. He felt as if he could use Doi to control the wand to cast magic. Doi had never been interested in his wand before and had never touched it. Maureen didn't know what the relationship between him and Doi was, but when Doi held the wand, it was as if he was holding the wand. Maureen tentatively shouted, "Petrify everyone." He was just trying to shout casually, but no one expected that Doi's wand would directly shoot out a white spell while running. The spell hit a black shadow in the air without deviation. The black shadow screamed, was knocked out, and fell far away. But Doi himself seemed to be frightened by the magic wand's ability to cast spells. He staggered, rolled on the hillside, and flew up. Petrified. Fall to the ground. Expelliarmus. Break into pieces. Maureen dodged the attacks of the shadows while shouting all the spells he could think of. Then the magic wand in Doi's hand was like a machine gun, firing spells in all directions. The latest novels are first published on 69 Shuba. Doi, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Doi shouted excitedly. The magic wand in his hand swept down a large area of the shadows in the air. The shadows never expected that they would attack a person, and there was a little monster behind them with a magic wand attacking them. One of the shadows was hit by a coma spell and fell at Maureen's feet. Maureen then realized that it was an ugly creature the size of a palm. It looked like a sparrow, and its body was rotten. It seemed to be a black magic made after death. "Catch him!" Pyongyang shouted. Lucas ran over from the castle gate. He fired a black magic forward, which turned into a black mist. He stepped on the black mist and then jumped high, leaping 5 or 6 meters in one step. "Doi, give me the wand!" Maureen shouted. But Doi had already stabilized in the air and stood firmly on a tree not far away. Her little paws held Maureen's wand tightly, and she put the handle of the wand on her belly. The tip of the wand was pointed at the monsters in the air, and she shouted happily, "Doi, swoosh swoosh swoosh. Very good, you have learned a new word. Let's stop swooshing and give me the wand." Maureen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But Doi seemed to be addicted to playing. She stretched out her little paws and waved at Maureen, signaling Maureen and shouting, "Momo, swoosh swoosh swoosh." Doi wanted Maureen to continue chanting the spell. Maureen was about to be defeated by Doi, and Doi was actually thinking about playing at this time. Lucas, who was far away, had already jumped over here. He was getting closer and closer, and his attention was all on Maureen. He didn't see Doi standing on the branch holding the wand like a machine gun. Maureen suddenly had an idea and shouted, "Doi, shoo him." solid as a rock. Doi turned the wand and aimed it at Lucas, who was just jumping from the air on the black fog with a wand taller than it. A golden spell jumped out and appeared in front of Lucas all of a sudden. Lucas couldn't see Doi. He was only concerned about catching Maureen. He didn't expect that there was a little monster holding a wand on the small tree next to him. The stone spell turned into a transparent wall. Before Lucas could react, Lucas screamed. He jumped over, and the impact was very strong, like a sandbag, and hit the stone spell wall firmly, and his nose was almost knocked crooked. Bang! Lucas fell from the sky and rolled down the hillside. Doi, whoosh! Momo, whoosh! Doi stood proudly on the treetop, holding Maureen's wand in one paw and resting the other on her waist. She was so proud. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 473 All Kinds of Whoosh. Maureen hadn't expected that magic could be cast in this way. He almost laughed. It was novel that Doi could use his wand to cast magic for him. Even Lucas would never have thought that he would be swooshed by a little monster with a magic wand. It was too embarrassing. Doi pointed the magic wand at Lucas, who was about to get up in the bushes. Maureen shouted in time, "Die!" Bang! Doi's spell was very accurate. It hit Lucas forward and knocked him to the ground. Die! All petrified. Front teeth like sticks. Nose wings as big as fans. Hair as lush as dogs. Mouth like a big funnel. Maureen shouted out more than 10 spells in one breath. No matter whether it was an evil curse or an attacking spell, he shouted out everything he could think of, and used the magic wand in Doi's hand to greet Lucas. He had to do this because Lucas's magic level was higher than his. If it was just a stunning spell, it would be easy to fail on Lucas. It would not be a bad thing to give Lucas a few more spells. These curses were usually mentioned by Madame Pomfrey when Maureen followed Anrin in the school infirmary. Because students sometimes like to cast various mischievous curses on others, those who are cursed can only come to Madame Pomfrey for help. Maureen was just listening to Madame Pomfrey and Anrin discussing how to treat these curses effectively, and he wrote them down casually. He didn't expect that they would come in handy. Doi, whoosh, whoosh. Doi was whistling happily on the treetops. Lucas was twitching on the ground and foaming at the mouth. It was as miserable as it could be. Lucas, who was so arrogant at first, didn't expect that he would be so completely defeated. At this time, his body was covered with thick hair, and his hair turned into spikes. His 2 front teeth grew taller than his whole body, and his mouth was big enough to fit a quaffle. Waste? You can't even handle such a small matter. Pangard shouted again, Moira, I can't leave the stone platform, go and catch him. Hogwarts cannot apparate, so Moira walked slowly under the stone platform with a cane. She walked very slowly, her body hunched and staggered, as if she would be blown to the ground by the wind in the next step, but every step she took would cover a long distance. This strange magic forced Maureen to be cautious. Doi had already wrapped Lucas tightly like a mummy. It wanted to continue to hiss at the old witch, but the old witch found something wrong. She saw that the spell was not coming from Maureen. Although she couldn't see Doi, she still waved her wand and blasted a purple spell at the tree where Doi was. Boom! The whole tree was blown to pieces. Doi screamed and jumped from the treetop and jumped onto Maureen's shoulder. Maureen quickly took his wand and fired several stunning spells in the direction of the old witch. His stunning spells were all blocked by the old witch, and the old witch's spells blew the bushes and rocks around him into pieces. Maureen ran down, throwing back spells as he ran, change in an instant. The branches and grass that were blown away were turned into mirrors in the air by Maureen, and these mirrors quickly surrounded the old witch. The old witch screamed, "How dare you look in the mirror? I won't let you go." She pulled out an ugly black bag from somewhere, and a stream of strange insects swarmed out of the bag. These insects were filled with a smell of decay, and they were densely packed in groups, just like flies coming out of a rotten corpse, which was particularly disgusting. This group of unknown insects fluttered their wings and covered all the mirrors that Maureen had conjured from all directions. In just a blink of an eye, the magic on all the mirrors had been eaten away and turned back into grass and branches. This group of insects seemed to specialize in devouring magic. The magic of the mirrors that Maureen had conjured up was eaten away at once, and all the magic disappeared. Stinky boy, Do you think you can use the same trick on me a second time? The old witch opened her toothless mouth coldly, laughing strangely, and was getting closer and closer to Maureen. Maureen ducked his head to dodge an old witch's spell. With his current magic level, he didn't dare to fight the old witch. There was no other way except to dodge. But he suddenly thought of something and stretched out his magic wand from behind the stone. After image. Buzz! An invisible ripple quickly spreading out based on its own 20-meter radius, covering the entire area. His after image only showed what happened in this area 2 minutes ago. Soon, another Maureen appeared from another direction. The spell of after image can restore the scene displayed in a certain area for a period of time very realistically. Although the restoration is only a scene, if you don't touch it, you can't tell whether it is true or false. Now it happened to be night, and the light was dim. When the shadow of another Maureen appeared on the hillside, the old witch was stunned at first. She frowned, wondering why Maureen, who had just run down, suddenly ran to the other side. But she thought of the tragic scene of Lucas being subdued just now, and thought that it was another strange magic by Maureen, so she immediately cast all the spells on Maureen, who was running down the hillside without hesitation. But all her spells passed through Maureen's body, and Maureen was still running down the hillside. The old witch had already discovered that something was wrong, but at this time, another spell was spread silently. The latest novel is first published on the 69th book bar. This time, Maureen's after image showed the scene 8 minutes ago. 8 minutes is the maximum limit of Maureen's current mastery of this time spell. This magic has no offensiveness, but its power lies in its ability to perfectly reproduce the scene within a specific time, and Maureen can still control this specific time. Then the third Maureen appeared 5 meters to the right of the old witch. Not only that, the third Maureen was shouting on the spot, "Doi! Give me the wand!" The weirdest thing was that the tree that was blown to pieces by the old witch had gathered together again at some point, and Doi was happily jumping around on the treetop. Then the old witch saw an even weirder scene. The third Maureen shouted a series of spells, and the wand on the treetop started to cast spells in all directions. She couldn't see Doi on the treetop, and thought that the wand had cramped, and one of the stun spells was coming towards her. She didn't hesitate to cast a strong brown spell to resist the stun spell flying from the treetop, but she couldn't resist the stun spell. She was so scared that her face changed drastically. For a moment, she thought that Maureen's stun spell was so powerful that even she couldn't resist it, and she was extremely surprised. You know, to her, Maureen is just a rookie wizard, and Maureen's spells will not pose a threat to her at all. But now she can't block Maureen's spells. Why did the opponent's magic power suddenly increase? What a terrible invisible man. He has become so powerful. The old witch was frightened and broke into cold sweat. She rushed to the side in a panic and bumped into a stone, causing the wrinkles on her face that were squeezed into a ball like a chrysanthemum to bloom. Chapter 474 True and False. The old witch had no idea that the stun spell cast by Doi, who was whistling spells on the treetops, was just a shadow. Ordinary spells could not block it at all, and there was no need to block it because it did not cause any harm. But the old witch could not tell the truth from the false, because this spell was too real, and she did not intend to take it head-on. Doi, who was shown by after image, was still whistling on the treetops, and Lucas had also appeared in the scene of the after image spell. Doi's rock hardness made Lucas scream and fall to the ground. Next, Doi ravaged Lucas, who was caught off guard. All kinds of front teeth and hair appeared on Lucas' body, which shocked the old witch. Tear into pieces. The old witch shouted and cast a spell at the tree where Doi was, but the spell quickly passed through the tree, and the spell she cast could not destroy the tree as she wished. The after image is revealed. At this time, the fourth Maureen appeared from below her. This time, Maureen got a magic wand and started to fight back against the old witch. Colorful spells rushed up from the hillside, and the old witch was frightened again, because at this time there were two spells attacking her from different directions. She threw out a barrier and wrapped herself in it, trying to block the two spells. She blocked one of them, but the other hit her head directly. When this spell hit the old witch, she was shivering. The evil spell she didn't block was the fanging spell. If she was hit, even if all her teeth fell out, two big stick-like front teeth would grow out. But nothing happened. She blocked the spell fired by the real Maureen, and the one she didn't block was the spell fired by the fake Maureen. She found that she was not hit by the spell and suddenly woke up. Illusion magic, you can actually use such a trick. The old witch was so angry that her face wrinkled. She was angry when she thought about how she had just hid her face against a stone in order to avoid this non-aggressive magic. She was a wizard who could fool the Aurors, but she was fooled by a second-year student of night? Boy, I will teach you a lesson. The old witch gritted her teeth and said. But there were already 7 or 8 Morans on the hillside. Each of these Morans looked so realistic, and each Moran was casting a spell. Even with the old witch's eyesight, she couldn't tell which one was the real Moran. Illusion annihilation. The old witch shouted, and a terrible halo of light came out from the tip of her wand, like a wave, shooting in all directions. This was a spell specifically for dealing with illusions, enough to defeat all kinds of illusions. But Moran's magic was not an illusion at all, it was a time spell, and the old witch's magic could not break these reappearing scenes. Not only that, more and more Moran had already run out of the darkness. Moran in the afterimage used afterimage, and then another Moran appeared in the illusion. It was like a terrible cycle. Moran only used afterimage 4 or 5 times, but there were dozens of Moran on the hillside. The whole hillside was full of Moran jumping around, repeating what they had just done, which made the old witch dumbfounded. She fired spells at these Moran one by one, but there was no way to eliminate them. These fake Moran would sometimes fire spells at her, and she was fine even if she was hit. Not only that, she suddenly saw a dozen of herself appearing around, walking down the hillside, and one of them hid her face on a stone to avoid the fake coma spell. So that's it. Your magic is all fake. The old witch was relieved. She knew that these spells of Moran could not hurt her at all. A petrification spell on the left hid her chest, but passed through her body. A stun spell from the right hid her forward and passed through her body. She couldn't tell which of these spells were real and which were fake. After being hit by a few spells and finding that she was fine, she was no longer worried. You can't escape, just surrender. The old witch's eyes swept around. After she understood the principle of Moran's magic, she knew how to deal with the Moran. As long as she found a Moran who didn't repeat what happened just now among these Morans, then this Moran would be real. Are your spells just for fun? The old witch said with a sneer. Another disarming spell flew over from behind, but the old witch didn't care at all. She knew that this spell couldn't hurt her either, but she was wrong. Before she could react, the wand in her hand had already slipped out of her hand. What? The old witch was shocked. She never expected that the spell behind her was real. When she turned around, she didn't find Moran behind her. What's going on? She roared angrily and tried to grab her wand, but at this moment, several evil curses shot out of nowhere in the darkness and hit her heartily, and her body instantly became stiff. She fell to the ground with a bang. This time, her fate was the same as Lucas's. She was hit by those evil curses and was unrecognizable. Momo, swoosh swoosh swoosh. Doi happily jumped onto the bushes with her wand in her arms and swooped at the old witch lying under the bushes. Doi, swoosh her to death. Moran ran over from the other end, laughing with satisfaction. He simply gave Doi the wand again, letting Doi run to the other end and swoosh the old witch beyond recognition while she was paralyzed by the fake spell. The old witch widened her eyes in anger. Her whole body was restrained and she couldn't move at all. She was so angry that she almost fainted when she saw Moran approaching. The latest novel is first published on the 69th book bar. In a fight, Moran would definitely not be able to beat the old witch, but the old witch was confused by Moran's afterimages and couldn't tell which was real and which was fake, so she was directly fooled. How come you are thicker than me? Doi blew so many stun spells, but she didn't knock you out. Is my stun spell so weak? Moran folded his hands on his chest, looked at the old witch, and couldn't help muttering. Arnok always praised him for his thick skin, but he found that he actually met an opponent, which was unbelievable. The old witch was so angry that her whole body was shaking. Then stun again, and faint. Doi stuns another stun spell, and the old witch rolled her eyes, but she still didn't faint. Wow, the skin is really thick. Moran exclaimed. Doi, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Doi held the magic wand as if it were a gun, dancing and playing with it very enthusiastically. Moran took the magic wand from Doi's hand and turned a large piece of stone into 5 mirrors, which surrounded the old witch like a coffin, and lit a fire inside, so that the old witch could see what she looked like anytime and anywhere. This is a great idea. Moran wanted to give himself a thumbs up. The old witch had curled up in fear and screamed "Awu Allah" inside. She seemed to be scared out of her wits by her appearance. I've solved 2 of them, and now you're the only one left. Maureen raised his head and looked at Pying 8 on the hillside. Chapter 475 Stone Arch. Pying on the stone platform seemed to have forced Ran and Professor Adams to put the black cube on the stone arch. Both of them looked very bad. Professor Adams supported Ran and curled up beside the stone arch. Sweet had just thrown the black cube to Maureen, which angered Pying. At this time, he was restrained by Pying and could not move. 9 black cubes were pressed into the stone arch, 4 of which came from Helena, Pying, Professor Adams and Ran, and the remaining 5 seemed to be forced in. Pying was waving his wand at the stone arch, chanting a series of difficult spells. These spells were very long, which was why he couldn't leave the stone arch to catch Maureen just now. He needed to cast magic on the stone arch. Pying had chanted faster and faster, and the wand in his hand emitted a series of green and white lights. These lights intertwined and merged into the black curtain in the middle of the stone arch. The black curtain swung more and more powerfully, exchanging between the 2 overlapping stone arches. The stone arch behind seemed very illusory. When the curtain swung through the stone arch, it seemed to enter an empty world and was about to disappear inside, but it was quickly pulled back from there and became solid again. Crash! The 2 overlapping stone arches suddenly emitted bursts of gray light, which gradually turned white. The white light illuminated the entire castle, like a blazing sun. But then the light of the stone arch dimmed again, and the white light turned into black light, like a black hole. All the light seemed to be swallowed up, and even the stars in the sky were eclipsed in front of this stone arch. The stone archway was interlaced between white and black, and the atmosphere became extremely strange. 2 completely different magical fluctuations enveloped the entire school, and it seemed that the entire castle became uneasy. At this time, the 4 black magic cubes on the stone archway suddenly lit up, and the marks on the 4 black magic cubes emitted 4 different colored lights. The white light connected to Helena, the golden light connected to Ran, the blue light connected to Professor Adams, and the gray light connected to Pying. The 4 lights seemed to be absorbing something from them. The stone archway was trembling slightly, and with the trembling of the black magic cubes, the 4 black magic cubes seemed to have slowly opened a crack. Shattered to pieces. Maureen fired a crushing spell at Pying from a distance, trying to stop Pying's spell, but his spell hit the stone platform, but it seemed to be attracted by something and disappeared on the stone platform. Maureen then noticed that a black lock magnet was floating above the stone archway, and his spell just now was sucked away by the lock magnet. Damn it, Pying actually put the lock magnet here. Maureen cursed inwardly. Now he couldn't appear in Hogwarts, so he couldn't rush over in time. But when he fired a spell at the stone arch from a distance, the spell would be sucked away by the lock magnet, so he couldn't break it at all. Walker, it seems that you have dealt with him, Pying said without looking back. Although he was in the painting, it didn't affect his ability to drive the stone arch at all. Under the control of his wand, the stone arch became more and more irritable and restless, as if something was about to break. This magnet was too evil. Not only could it suck the house into a big iron ball, it could also suck away other people's spells. It was really difficult to deal with. But Maureen shouted again, wind and thunder sound. Only this spell was effective against the Locan magnet. Once the Locan magnet swallowed up the lightning magic, it would become ineffective. The blue lightning flashed and disappeared, and jumped towards the Locan magnet. But when Maureen's lightning sparks were halfway through flying, it seemed to be deflected by something, and then all the sparks disappeared. Why is it ineffective? Maureen was surprised. He clearly remembered that he could interfere with the effect of Locke's magnet by using lightning magic at the right angle last time. Why didn't it work this time? He looked closely and noticed that there was a thin black iron rod next to Locke's magnet. It was this iron rod that sucked away all his lightning. Walker, do you think I won't be on guard against this? Pying drew back his wand, turned around, and looked at Maureen with a sneer. He seemed to have achieved his goal, and the 2 stone arches behind him were still intertwined between black and white. Pying leaned against the picture frame and said jokingly, it is undeniable that some of the inventions of Muggles are very clever. Lightning rods, very interesting things. I only need to use magic to improve them a little bit, and it will be enough to block your lightning magic. Maureen was surprised. He had heard Professor Adams mention Muggle lightning rods before, but he didn't expect Pying to use such a simple thing to protect the Locan magnet. The weakness of the Locan magnet is that it will be disturbed by specific lightning magic, but Pying used an iron rod to perfectly make up for the weakness of the Locan magnet. This guy is really amazing. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Maureen couldn't help thinking. Unlike Voldemort, who looked down on Muggles, Peeing did not reject Muggles. He knew both wizards and Muggles very well. He would learn anything that was beneficial to him. Such wizards were the most terrifying. Flames. Maureen cast another spell, and the blazing flames enveloped the stone platform from below. Maureen originally intended to see if he could burn Peeing from under the stone platform, but as soon as his spell touched the stone platform, it was once again sucked away by the Loken magnet. It's useless, Walker, your spell doesn't work on me. Peeing's eyes actually emitted a gray light at this time. He raised his head slightly and saw that the sky above Hogwarts was already filled with various gorgeous fireworks. These fireworks were the signal magic that Maureen had just sent out. Hogwarts was not far away from Hogsmeade Village. If the villagers of Hogsmeade could find these fireworks, they hoped to find something. But Peeing laughed again. Walker, do you think these signals will work? Maureen stopped under the stone archway, raised his wand and pointed it at Peeing vigilantly. You made such a big noise in the school, did you think no one would notice? Maureen said with forced calmness. You don't know Hogwarts well enough, how can you imagine the magic of the school? Peeing laughed triumphantly. Hogwarts has very powerful magic, it can hide its existence, and it can't even be shown on the map. The signal magic you cast in the school can't be seen by people outside except us. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.